Holy crap.
People persist in doubting the evidence.
Don't run and hide. Don't be afraid. Don't turn away any longer. The truth will set you free.
You're listening to Jimmy Church Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
We're turning all of our antennas towards Jimmy Church on Dark Matter Radio.
And now, your host, the captain of conspiracy, the prince of paranormal. This ain't your daddy's radio network show. This is Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Okay, all right. Time to be professional. Get my feet off the desk. Man, Twitter's on fire tonight, huh? How you doing? Yeah. That's cool, hanging out a little bit before the show like that. Now you know the secrets of the studio. What's really going on? When I say I'm not wearing socks. How you doing? This is Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. Today's Tuesday, November 18th. We are 319 days into the new year. Not so new now. We are live from the JP Motorsports Studios right here in downtown Burbank, California, the heart of the valley. For KJCR and the Dark Matter Radio Network, love saying that, I am your oh-so-humble host, Jimmy Church. How is everybody doing? Great hanging out on Twitter like that, isn't it? You guys are nuts. Oh, man. You see that? Nancy Hayfield Burns, tweeted a pic of Bill's socks. Oh, man. TMI. Big salute to the proud men and women in uniform all around the world fighting that good fight. Our Constitution, this show, the free internet. Podcast got updated a little late. Wasn't our fault. It's up. It's done. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast, just go over to jimmychurchradio.com. Very easy to do. There's a podcast page. Dale's in the house. Hey, by the way, before we get this show cracking, got a new website coming. Oh, yeah, we do. I've seen it. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. We're not that far away from a launch. I don't know. Maybe a week. The old website, it was my fault. I wanted something old school with new technology. Old. I wanted to go back. The new website is going to be more of the same. I think you'll dig it. I'm very, very happy with the way things are coming along. So with that, I don't even know why I mentioned that. Oh, it doesn't matter, does it? I have no idea. Why we should have just sprung it on you. Faders.org. Unbelievable. Faders.org is what I want our new website to look like, but it won't be that cool. It just won't. It won't. Faders.org rocks. Somebody tweeted the other day, or maybe it was posted. Jimmy Church's new website. No, that ain't mine. That is yours. Faders.org is a Fader Not website. Oh, I wish I could claim some responsibility there, but nope. I had nothing to do with the genius that's going on that page. Faders.org. If you're a new listener and you want to be a Fader Not, you want to jump in, go to faders.org, Faders.org. Go check it out. Quite seriously, quite possibly, the coolest website on the internet. Today, let's get this cracking. Are you guys ready? Are you ready? Man, I'm only up to, 310 tweets? That's not enough. I said, are you ready? I know it's freezing cold out around the country. You're having a hard time tweeting. Fingers are cold, rigid. But let's go, man. Let's get fired up. Let's go. All right. Today, not yesterday, today, actor Owen Wilson is 46 years old. Today, Metallica guitarist Kirk Hammett is 52. Looks 72. Today, actor, comedian Kevin Nealon is 61. Looks 81. And our dead guy's birthday today is astronaut Alan Shepard. Born in 1923, died in 1998 at the age of 74. He was a test pilot who in 1961 became the first U.S. astronaut and second human being in space. He was also the commander of Apollo 14 and the fifth person to walk on the moon. Celebrated it all by popping a couple of golf balls off of the moon's surface. Alan Shepard. Now, Twitter, let's light it up right now. Here we go. I'm going to find out where the Fader Not family, where their hearts truly are with this question. Who deserved the number one slot on the birthday list today? Owen Wilson or Kirk Hammett or Space Boy? Happy birthday, Space Boy. Happy birthday. 19 years old, talented. How do you get to the age of 19 and write music like that? Talented. Play music like that. Happy birthday, Space Boy. And yeah, I set you up. And I don't feel bad. Happy birthday to Space Boy. All right, Fader Knots, light it up. Everybody say happy birthday to Space Boy. Follow us on Twitter, by the way. That's what you want to do. At JChurch Radio. Hashtag DMRadioNet. You can go to Facebook, follow, like, subscribe, YouTube, all that stuff. Everything's Fade to Black. Jimmy Church Radio, Jimmy Church, Church, Fade to Black. Simple to do. Get it done. Follow, like, subscribe. You do want to come out and hang in the sandbox. That's where it is at. And that is hashtag DMRadioNet. Tonight, we have Reverend Michael J.S. Carter at the bottom of the hour. The J.S. is there to separate him from all the other Reverend Michael Carters out there. I understand that. But I think tonight I'm going to try to get away with either Reverend or Michael. But Michael J.S. Carter, that's man, whew, distinctive. Michael Carter will be joining us at the bottom of the hour. Tomorrow, Dennis Stone of America's Stonehenge. And if you don't know, Dennis Stone grew up right there at America's Stonehenge. And how did that affect your childhood? Could you just imagine growing up with that in your yard? Seriously. I will be taking your calls tonight with the good Reverend. Looking forward to that. I've been excited about this show for a long time. Big fan. And it's going to be an interesting night tonight. E.T. in the Bible, his experiences, what are we really dealing with? It's a subject that we discuss all the time on this show. We do it. And tonight we get to go, straight to the Reverend himself. You've seen him on Ancient Aliens, other shows. He's, you know what? I hate to say it, but he's the man. And I'm really looking forward to it. You can email throughout the show, Jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. Very simple. Make it good. Get it past whoa, and I will see it. You can also go over to the contact page where we use non-NSA specially encrypted servers if you're scared. TweetDeck. Already got got a question up here already for the good Reverend from Master Carpenter. If you do have a question for our guest tonight, it is hashtag F and the number 2 BQ. Simple, fade to black questions. Hashtag F2BQ. All right. I use TweetDeck. I have a column right there. Hashtag F2BQ. All right. Take advantage of it. The Roswell object, we trying to come up with a name for it. The Roswell object. Got it out yesterday. Got a bunch of email about it. A couple of phone calls. Interesting, and I'm glad we've handled it the way we have. I'm still trying to figure out what that is. Obviously, we know it is silica. It's glass. But what is it? Well, got a couple of emails. Let's see here. Let me do this one first, and I'll see if I can squeeze all the email in before the first break. How's that? This email from Warren. He says, just an FYI, today in history, in 1978, Jim Jones led his followers at the People's Temple Agriculture Project in Guyana to mass suicide and murder. Some of your listeners may have a connection with this or even a distant connection or interest. Maybe one day you can do a show about it. I would love to. I have studied this topic in great depth, and Jimmy, it is encased in conspiracy from MK Ultra to the CIA. I 100% agree. I was in Central America. I was down in Panama when that went down in 1978. And down there, we didn't have, news and stuff like that. The only newspaper was flown in every day from Miami, the Miami Herald. And it came in on a plane every day. No, I'm not kidding about this. And, of course, no internet, 1978. No cable TV, certainly no satellite, nothing like that. And I remember getting Time magazine. My dad subscribed to Time, and it came in, and there it was, Jim Jones. And that wasn't, if you think about it, it's not that far from Panama. And it really tripped me out. It really left a mark on me mentally over all these years. I would love to do a show on it. So we will look into that. Suggestions? Who would be the expert for a Jim Jones show? I'll throw that over to you, Fadernauts. You know what to do. This email came in from Fang. He says, silicon is cast in cylindrical. Now, he says silicone. So, but you know what he's referring to. Silicon is cast in a cylindrical shape for bulk sale. This looks like a broken piece of said ingot. If exacting weight size is required, the ingot might be turned on a lathe until it reaches the desired weight and size. This would give it the machined look. It also might simply be artifacts of the mold silicon was cast with. Interesting. This email came in from Malin. He says, my father used to work in the semiconductor industry. The pictures shown on the website remind me of his old occupation. They would grow silicon like a crystal in a cylindrical form. Then they would slice the cylinder thinly to produce the silicon wafers that would be imprinted via ultraviolet lithography to produce the microchips found in everything electronic we use today. The pictures look to me like a chunk of one of those cylinders of silicon. And so I feel the debris is man-made and is not as old as claimed. Thank you so much. That's why we posted the pictures. I want info. I'm collecting data. I want to hear from everybody. Go look at the pictures. the Roswell object. You can go look at them over at jimmychurchradio.com. There's a little bit of info there. There is some analysis that was done as well. I have those tests from the University of New Mexico and the analysis. What it is, I've never seen anything like it. So, and I worked for Bell Labs for a while, but I didn't ever make it down to see how they were slicing that stuff up. So I have no idea. I wish I would be able to just go, oh, yep. I know what that is, but I don't. So that's why we did it like we did. This is Fade to Black. Keep the emails, keep those coming, keep the guest requests coming. Tonight, bottom of the hour, Reverend Michael J.S. Carter will be with us. Tomorrow, Dennis Stone from America's Stonehenge. If you do have an article, you have something you want me to cover, send it to me, Jimmy at jimmychurchradio.com. You know what to do. All right, Fadernauts, let's get this one cracking. This is Fade to Black, only on the Dark Matter Radio Network. Follow us on Twitter right now, at JChurchRadio. I'll be back with some news right after this. Stay with us, everybody.
You're listening to Jimmy Church Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, you have tuned into the latest phenomenon in late night talk radio, Fade to Black, starring the inimitable Jimmy Church, showcasing his continuing quest in pursuit of knowledge of the strange and paranormal. Sit back, open your mind, and let's get cracking.
What's up, revolutionaries? It's me, Jimmy Church. Do you have an IRS or state tax issue? Well, I did, and I called national tax experts. My problems were fixed, done, fini, and man, I got to tell you, it was a relief. National Tax Experts are a recognized tax office that services clients in all 50 states. Doesn't matter where you live. Give them a call. I'm telling you, they take the time to understand each and every client's individual financial status as well as their financial goals. And that's exactly what you need, my brother, when you're taking on the evil three-letter. So, seriously, give them a call today at 1-877-909-5444. Again, 1-877-909-5444. Or go check out their website, www.nattaxexperts.com. That's NATTAXEXPERTS.com. Tell them Jimmy sent you.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
On the Dark Matter Radio Network.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses. We are only on the Dark Matter Radio Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, your oh-so-humble host. Follow us on Twitter right now, at JChurchRadio. You can email me throughout the show, Jimmy at jimmychurchradio.com. Also, go to the contact page. You can email me there. Everything goes through the producers. Please note that. But if it's good, I'll get it. So make it good. Make it smart. What happened to Ebola? CNN top stories today: cold temps, Ferguson, the Keystone vote, ISIS, Kim Jong-il's bodyguard, and the word of the year. That's right, according to Webster's, is vape. It can be used either as a noun, meaning an electronic cigarette or similar device, or a verb in which one would inhale and exhale the vapor produced by an electronic cigarette or similar device. And the other top story on CNN, Melissa McCarthy has lost some weight. No Ebola. Came and went, didn't it? One day. Evidence of a possible malicious intrusion led the State Department to completely shut down all of its email service on Friday, and it's still down. A senior official told the Associated Press that the agency had discovered activity of concern, but said that no classified material was compromised, only unclassified email. Now, check this out. It gets better. The White House, the Postal Service, and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration have all been hacked in recent months, not to mention countless corporations. As the breaches continue, government agencies like the State Department are taking more drastic actions to protect the data. Are you sitting down? An official who spoke to the Washington Post said that even parts of the agency's public website had been temporarily shut down. You know what they are doing? They're now using Gmail accounts as a way to keep working. Like I said, it gets better. Here's an open letter to Americans. An open letter to Americans from our friends up north. And it's titled, "You Americans have no idea just how good you have it with Obama." Okay? Slow down, sit, and let me read this before there's overreaction. This is not a political show, but this is a great letter. It starts out, "Many of us Canadians are confused by the U.S. midterm elections. Consider, right now in America, corporate profits are at record highs. The country's adding 200,000 jobs per month. Unemployment is below 6%. The U.S. gross national product growth is the best of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the OECD, countries. The dollar is at its strongest levels in years. The stock market is near record highs. Gasoline prices are falling. There's no inflation. Interest rates are the lowest in 30 years. U.S. oil imports are declining. U.S. oil production is rapidly increasing. The deficit is rapidly declining, and the wealthy are still making astonishing amounts of money. America is leading the world once again and respected internationally. In sharp contrast to the Bush years, Obama brought soldiers home from Iraq and killed Osama bin Laden. So, Americans, vote for the party that got you into this mess that Obama just dug you out of. This defies reason. When you are all done with Obama, could you please send him our way? And that is from Richard Brunt, Victoria, British Columbia. Mike Barrett just tweeted, "Sadly, that is all pretty much BS, Jimmy. I am saying the only reason why I read this, I'm not an Obama guy. I'm not a Bush guy. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not any of that mess. I'm saying this is how they look at us from outside of this country. That's what I'm saying. We all have our issues here. It doesn't matter who gets elected. It doesn't matter. Come on. Nothing changes. We all know that. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. When Obama got elected, everybody thought, wow, for once, something's really going to change. Nothing changed. Do you feel different today? Right now, in your home, do you feel different today than you did the day before? Do you feel different today than the day before Obama got elected? No, you don't. And it doesn't matter who comes into the White House, whether it's Clinton or a Bush or a Republican or a Democrat. Nothing changes. Nothing changes. What did Obama do for you? Nothing. You still got to get up, go to work, put on your shoes, go make your money, come back, pay your rent, your mortgage, feed the family. Nothing. There's no direct influence on anything at all, ever. Let me make that perfectly clear. I read this letter because this is the way people outside of this country potentially look at us. And you need to think about that for a second. It's not that bad here, is it? It's really not. I'll tell you what, when I went to fill up the tank the other day and I'm looking at $2.99 gas here in California, trust me, I get that. Wonder how long it's going to stay. But, I wanted to talk about that for a second. These falling gas prices. When you look at the way that the United States has changed in the last, 20 years, 25 years, where all of us were driving V8s, gas guzzling, big, heavy steel cars from Detroit. And, things have changed. Everything is, great gas mileage. Well, not everything. But you get that. So that part of the curve has started to change. So we're getting all the way across the country. Everybody's, just driving more efficient vehicles. And our need for consumption is probably dropped quite a bit. But they're still producing as much as they can to make money. I'm talking about OPEC and what's going on over there. And then we want to import less, so we're producing more here. And now suddenly we've taken the turn on our gas consumption. And that to me makes a lot of sense. And that, when you see that, when you see $2.99 you got to think about the big picture here. I think about it all the time. I have two cars that get excellent gas mileage. Excellent. I just sold, somebody asked me about this, but I just sold a 1972 Chevy El Camino. A beautiful car, by the way. Twice pipes, Corvette Rally 1972 rims, stock, clean interior, 100,000 miles on a car that old. It looked brand new, absolutely brand new, completely stock. The interior, perfect. Just a beautiful car. But that thing cost me $20 to start. To go down the street. You could literally, and I'm not kidding, you could floor it, and watch the gas gauge drop. You could really do it. You could do it. And that thing, as fun as it was and as good looking as it was, and I'm a Ford guy, but I hated to see that go. Sold it to, oddly enough, we put it on, I forget where we advertised it, but it was up on the internet for about 30 seconds, and I get a phone call. And I called Wowo, and I'm like, hey, when did you put this? And she said, 2 minutes ago. I said, I got a call. And it turned out, 19-year-old kid, veteran, Marine from Iraq. He was home on leave for 4 weeks. And he wanted that car because his dad had that car. And he always wanted that exact car. And I didn't want to sell it. But I looked at him and said, what are you going to do? He said, man, I'm going to take this back to 29 Palms. I'm going to park it. And I'm just going to make it beautiful. I said, you know what? Sold. And he drove away. And Wowo called me back. You didn't sell it, did you? I said, I did. And there the car went. But I stopped spending money on gas It's on the 19-year-old veteran Marine from Iraq. But I did the right thing, right? Did I do the right thing? Gasp. I have an F-150 four-wheel drive 8-cylinder. I feel you. Exactly. So, anyway, this is Fade to Black. I am ready for the good Reverend. Let's get out of here. It's the bottom of the hour. Gas prices, man. Is it under $3 all the way around the country? I want to see some tweets real quick. What are you spending on gas where you are at? Make me cry. We're doing $2.99 here. This is Fade to Black, only on the Dark Matter Radio Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Be back with Reverend Michael Carter right after this. Stay with us.
Are you afraid of the dark? Don't move. Don't touch that mouse. You are listening to Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
Dark Matter.
Dark Matter, Dark Matter, Dark Matter, Dark Matter.
You're listening to Fade to Black
on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Everybody, welcome back. Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses, only on the Dark Matter Radio Network. Shoot me an email right now to jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. Got a question for Reverend Michael Carter? You can do that. Hashtag F2BQ. Got some questions already lined up here. Check that out. Pretty cool. And, I'm just looking. It looks like Betty Oliver's the winner here. $2.54 a gallon. Wow, New York is still at $3.29. I thought if you went over the river and went into New Jersey, isn't that like the cheapest gas in America is right there? $2.35 regular from Ziggy in New Orleans. Wow, $2.35. That's like free. But they built us up for this. This is still expensive. Now we're happy. It's so funny. You got to love it. All right, let's get this cracking. I am so fired up. Reverend Michael J.S. Carter is originally from Baltimore, Maryland. He moved to New York City in 1980 and lived there for 25 years, working as a professional actor before moving to Asheville with his family. Michael is an ordained interfaith minister and received his B.A. degree in letters from the College of New Rochelle, where he graduated cum laude. He received his master's in divinity degree from Union Theological Seminary in New York City, class of 2000. Reverend Carter now serves as the minister for the Unitarian Universalist congregation of the Shenandoah Valley in western North Carolina. Reverend Carter has written articles on UFOs and religion for UFO Magazine, Alien Encounters, the MUFON UFO Journal, the Contact Forum, and the Space Newsletter. A longtime UFO experiencer, he lectures extensively on the topic of religion and UFOs. He has appeared on the Sci-Fi Channel's Abduction Diaries, The Real 4400, and Ancient Aliens. Reverend Carter's new book is entitled The Alien Scriptures, Extraterrestrials in the Holy Bible. I would like to welcome to the program Reverend Michael J.S. Carter. How are you, sir?
Hey, brother, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, and thank you for coming on with us. But let's start off the proper way, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Shall it be Reverend? Shall it be Reverend Michael J.S. Carter? Can it be Reverend Michael? Can it just be Michael? How do
I think just Michael will do fine. I've been called worse.
So we're cool with that.
Yeah, Michael is good.
You know, when you're talking to, and I've had, reverends and priests and stuff on the show, and I'm always a little nervous, a little intimidated, little nervous. So I just want to do this the right way. I don't want to get into any trouble with the man upstairs. I want to show the due respect. So,
yeah, no, it's all good. It's all good, brother. I'm pumped up. I've been looking forward to this, and it's all fair game. So let's get to it.
Thank you so much. And as you know, we're just going to sit here on the couch. You and I are just going to have a nice conversation.
Yes.
And we'll see where we start, and we'll see where we end. In the end, we'll be friends, but let's just hope that we find it interesting, and so will everybody else, and let's just have a good time.
Yeah. It's great. I think people are ready for this. They've probably been ready for this for a long time. The Vatican has been talking about this since 2005, and the present Pope, and extraterrestrial life is not a contradiction for them, and there are many reasons for that. And so, disclosure's happening every day. We're still waiting for Obama, who's Caesar now. Maybe Clinton will be Caesar in 2016. Who knows? But, we don't have to wait for someone to validate something that's already going on. But disclosure's happening every day. Military people, airline pilots. People are coming out and talking about these experiences, and so it's an exciting time.
Before we go deep, I'll throw you a couple of softballs to start things off. But the one thing I have to ask: do you ever mention ETs or UFOs to your congregation?
Great question, and the answer is kind of, sort of. Basically, I'm like the government. I don't tell them everything. But I try to keep it out of the pulpit because, it's not for everybody, and that's not my calling. But there have been people, sometimes I'll throw in a Whitley Strieber quote, or I may say something in some roundabout way. But people, my congregation, many people have seen me on Ancient Aliens. They purchased my book. So it's an open secret, if you will. But it's funny you mention that. There happens to be a woman, and we'll see how this plays out. She's coming to speak to the church leaders and what have you, because she has a problem with her minister writing about UFOs in the Bible. She has a problem with me talking about my contact experiences. Now, I've been at this congregation for about two years, just about, and the board is they're like, listen, it doesn't bother us. He's doing his job. What's the big deal? But it's funny you mention that, because just in the past week or so, she's starting a little buzz, and it's going to be more open. At first, I was upset about it, but now I'm like, who knows? This could be the best thing that ever happened. I haven't kept it a secret in the sense of, shh, don't tell anybody.
Right.
But it's. I don't think people come on Sunday to hear me talk about these beliefs and my experiences.
What about the elders?
So we'll just see how that goes.
What about the elders? Do they come out? Hey, Reverend, Ixnay on the ETA. Okay, we got to.
Well, I think that's the saving grace, is that in the Unitarian Universalist congregational polity, if you will, the power comes from the board. The board is democratically elected. It's not like in a lot of churches where there's this hierarchy, there's a bishop or a priest or what have you. And so, fortunately, I have a very open-minded and understanding board. Again, I do my job. The church is growing. There are a lot of positive things that have gone on. So this is something that I do, and it hasn't been a big deal. And this woman is trying to make it a big deal, so we'll see what happens. And this is just all very recent. So who knows? They may hear more about it. But people have come to the church and said, "I've seen you on television," or "I've Googled you, and I'm just curious." But I say you can come to this church. You're always welcome. But it's not a UFO church. You're not going to hear me talking about that, and they're fine with it. So if they're okay with it, I'm okay with it.
I'm going to ask you this, and please understand and take this the right way. But but it has to be asked. When I go to UFO conventions, or I go and I speak, there is a general lack of the African American community there.
Oh, yeah.
It is, and why is that? Why do you think that is? Because I would imagine. Well, no. Answer the question first, and then
questions. These are great questions, Jimmy. Yeah, well, a lot of it is cultural, and by that I mean, I belong to the Unitarian Universalist. I serve a UU congregation. It is mostly a white, upper middle class, upper class denomination, very well educated folk, and we are very open to other perspectives. I mean, in my congregation on a Sunday, you may have a Buddhist sitting next to an atheist, sitting next to someone who doesn't know and doesn't care, sitting next to a Christian. In the African American community, Jesus is all that. And in my congregation, we may not necessarily look at Jesus as God or he died for our sins, that kind of thing. We have a very different perspective. Coming back to your question is it's probably the social stigma that comes with it. I mean, I just very recently came out of the closet talking about being a contactee. When I first started this almost 20 years ago, I wouldn't mention anything about that. One of my publishers suggested, come on, grow a pair, come out and tell people what's going on.
Right.
So I think part of it is that cultural perspective, but also, I mean, there is the stigma, not only in America at large, but in the African American community. Very conservative community, a lot of us are.
Yes.
Socially conservative.
Sure.
So I think those are at least, I'm sure there are other reasons, but from my perspective, obviously not speaking for all folk of color, that those are biggies. The theological implications.
Right.
If I'm saying Jesus is a hybrid, oh my God. That's going to be a problem for a lot of people. But also, are you crazy, man? Are you telling me that you're talking about little people coming to you or big people or whatever?
Exactly. One of my producers here, Hilton, he's African American. He's a mighty proud black man from Watts. He drives up here from Watts. A good friend of mine for many, many, many years. And I asked him. I should play this. I should find this audio. I asked him on the show once live. I put him on the spot, and I said, "Hey, man, what's up with E.T. in Watts?" "Oh no, man, we don't talk about it." And I said, "Why? Why is that?" He goes, we just no, we don't talk about it. I said, "Well, have you guys ever seen? Do you guys look? I'm saying you guys as in." His family or whatever, his friend in Watts, his friends in Watts.
I'm feeling you.
And he's like, man, even if we did, we wouldn't talk about it. And I just found that to be surprising.
Well, it can be. Again, we are, and I'm painting with a wide brush. African Americans historically are very socially progressive. Obviously civil rights and what have you. But even if you're looking at and this probably contradicts what I just said, even in, whether it's the GBLTQ community, brothers and sisters from that community, we can be very socially conservative around those issues, so around religion, that kind of thing.
Right.
I mean, it's pretty heretical, even without me having UFO experiences, me talking about, I don't look at Jesus as dying for my sins. I used to. But that doesn't fit my paradigm anymore. So even for white brothers and sisters, but for African Americans, man, they have to check my Negro card. Is he really black? Is his membership paid up?
I can only imagine.
Membership paid up?
Yeah. And
so how is that he's not black enough? And now he doesn't even believe And, you know, he went to seminary, and, oh, that boy, we have to pray for him.
Now, well,
so, you know, it's a journey, brother. It's a journey.
Take us back. We know that you're an experiencer, so let's, like I said, I'm going to throw you a couple of softballs. So let's just start there for the audience. What happened? Something happened. Let's go back and let's start there. I'll let you tell the story, and then we'll take off.
Oh, yeah. Well, okay. As a kid, I'm going to jump to the chase, but as a kid, you know, the Christian theologian Kierkegaard, the Danish theologian, he said life is lived forward, but it's only understood backwards. When I was a child, you know, I saw all the, you know, these orbs in my room. I didn't know they were orbs. I would just look, and I would see these balls of light, and they'd always be around me. And I noticed that I could see, now I call them auras, but I could always see colors around people and things and what have you. And I would wake up many an evening, or many a morning, and I would have blood on my pillow. And I was thinking that, hey, man, were my ears bleeding? Did I cut myself? Now I realized I probably had some type of tracking device on implant, but I didn't know how to articulate it then. But then, on December 28, 1989, coming back from the pyramids at Chichen Itza in Tulum, I was there with my first girlfriend who became my wife, my first wife. We were in Cancun, and we decided to go to the Yucatan Peninsula, and I came back home. And I had really never been anywhere. You know, I'd never been really out of the country, and I was laying out in the sun, and it was like 20 degrees back in New York, and I was coming back from 85, 90 degrees. I had been invited to a party, and I was tired. You know, I got off the plane. We caught a cab back to the city, but I went anyway. I wanted to show off my tan. I was kind of hanging out, so I went, and I stayed for about 90 minutes. No beverages consumed. I mean, I may have had some deviled eggs or potato salad or something, but I made my appearance, and I showed up. And, you know, we talked about what a fantastic trip it was, and I went back uptown. I went to Times Square, and I caught the subway home back uptown. And that evening, I don't even know to this day why I woke up. Maybe I felt the presence. I know I didn't have to go to the bathroom. I don't recall that. And when I got up to sit up in my bed, the room was flooded with this cobalt blue white light. I mean, it was lit up. And we're talking the 15th floor of the Excelsior Hotel at 45 West 81st Street between Columbus and the Park.
Right.
Heavily populated area. And there was a being on the edge of my bed just staring at me, and had to, you know, it was very chalk colored. It wasn't a gray brother. It was, at least I thought it was a brother. It could have been a woman, but I didn't feel that kind of energy. I don't know what I felt. I just know I felt terror. And it had the pear-shaped head, and I used to call them Ray-Ban eyes, you know, old sunglasses, wrap-around eyes, and it had a real tight-fitting jumpsuit on that looked like aluminum foil.
Really?
And I thought my heart was going to come out of my chest. So I did what any other red-blooded American man did. I pulled the covers up over my head and hoped it would go away. And Sandy, who was my girlfriend and later became my first wife, she would not wake up. She just didn't move. And so I was just there, and I heard this whoosh sound, and it felt like I was outside. It felt like the temperature had changed. And I was like, what the? And so I pulled the covers down, and no one was in the room.
And your girlfriend?
No one was in the room.
Girlfriend or wife? I'm sorry, I think
Sandy, Sandy, and I can mention her name because she has no problem with that. She's also in my book as an acknowledgement.
Right.
She didn't move. She was just out.
And what did she? What the later on after? I don't want to stop with what we're talking about here. I just want to know: did she remember anything, or was she out?
No, she didn't remember anything at all. But I told her what happened. But she was very spiritually attuned, which is one of the reasons that I was attracted to her. very centered person, very just had a lot of depth, and she never questioned me. She because she just knew. Michael, of course. I mean, why wouldn't this happen?
Hey, Reverend Michael, Michael, your connection's breaking up a little bit. So I don't know what it is.
Well, let me. You know what it is? I'm reliving this, and I'm pacing because I got all this energy, like I'm there. So let me just be still. Let me sit down. Okay.
Now it sounds perfect. Yeah.
I'm walking up and down, thinking about the night that we're talking. So anyway.
No, the phone is still breaking up. Let's. I don't know if we should reset the connection, or can you change phones?
Okay, can you hear me now?
It's breaking up. It's breaking up. They know. The Vatican knows you're talking right now.
Oh Lord, don't say that. How about now?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Now it sounds good.
I'm sitting still in one spot.
Oh.
So anyway, I went to a psychiatrist, and I was having these visits twice a month for about 8-10 months.
Same being every time.
Yeah, same people. Later on, I started having different races come. Very recently, as a matter of fact, I had Dr. Jean Mundy. She's deceased. She was the first person. Regression, and Bud, the late Bud Hopkins,
right,
who was a friend of mine, even though we didn't see eye to eye on the phenomenon as such. He regressed me, and both of them were very good at what they did. And it took a lot of trauma from me because there was a lot of PTSD, that kind of stuff I was going through. And then that started my journey. As far as saying, okay, now if these people are visiting me and other people now, and they had to be coming here before 1947 at Roswell, and it got me interested in the religious / spiritual part of this. I'm not a big propulsion systems guy or back engineering. I know the government is big on that, but I'm more. I guess I resonate more with John Mack and people of that ilk who. I'm more interested in the transformational aspects of it. How do I get up the next day and deal with my fellow human beings after I've looked into the eyes of one of these brothers?
Yeah, we've got a problem with the audio. I'm going to take a quick break. I'm going to let's reset things and let's see what we can do. Okay, we'll be right back after this. This is Fade to Black. We are talking with Reverend Michael Carter. Got a little phone issue. We'll fix that as we break. This is Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We'll be back right after this. Stay with us.
Hi, everybody. This is Rob Halford, the Metal God, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? My name's Brian Taylor, Ninja Badass Extraordinaire, and this is JimmyChurchRadio.com.
JJZR in your face.
JimmyChurchRadio.com on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. Only on the Dark Matter Radio Network. We are talking with Reverend Michael Carter. Reverend, are you with us?
I'm here.
Okay, now you sound great. Okay, let's go back. You hooked up with Bud Hopkins. You started to get regressed, but I want to go actually back to that night first, the first night.
Yeah.
Did you? What did do you remember, little things like what did the skin look like, and did you smell anything strange? Did anything like that did the atmosphere change for you?
Well, the atmosphere changed because now the first time I wasn't paralyzed. After they used to visit, after that they would paralyze me. Sometimes there was a sulfur-like smell in the room, like when people light matches and you can smell the sulfur from that.
Interesting.
There was also, the skin. Now these, I guess we would call them a species of grays, even though again they were not gray in color, but they were very small, maybe 5 feet tops, if that. And sometimes they would come and they would have hoodies on. Well, I call them hoodies, like those kind of monk's robes with the hood on the back.
Uh-huh.
A couple times they came and there was a tall brother with them, a tall gray, and that went on for several months. And after about a year, I had been visited by reptilians. Another attention grabber. They just walked through your wall, and they were like very built, alligator skin, greenish gray, very built, like they went to the gym before they came to my room or something. And they had the eyes, the slits were, they were like a cat's eyes sometimes. They were vertical instead of like our eyes. And they would, when they would talk, they wouldn't talk. They would just, like their voice would be in my head, like telepathy.
Is that how?
Sometimes they would show me pictures of the pictures of other past life things and stuff like that, of my past lives.
Really?
Yes, indeedy.
Okay, well, I've got to come back to that.
Yeah.
That's interesting. What about the communication with the Greys? Did you have any communication with them?
It was all pictures or telepathy.
So they weren't speaking, right?
It was. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It was all as if I had speakers. My ears were speakers, and I would feel their talk right where my third eye was. It was, but they didn't. Their mouths didn't move. Mouths didn't move.
Wow.
And they showed me a picture of myself in actually a suit that I had in my closet at the time, speaking on the right side. On the left, they showed me a picture, and I just knew it was me as a monk.
Really?
Yes, indeedy, and it was past life. That's just the way I interpreted it. When I was in Boston, I did a lot of anti-racism work with the UUA and Unitarian Universalist Association. And when they wanted to visit me there, they came to the bed and breakfast I was in, and they showed me a picture of one of them pointing to a pair of hands in a prayer position with a thunderbolt, a lightning bolt going through it, which, I'm a healer as well. And so to me, they were saying, pray for energy, use your energy. I have not had any negative. I don't say I'm abducted because I don't believe I was.
You were just visited.
I was visited. That's the way I look at it. Now, there were painful things that happened to me. I remember one night, because when they come, it would get really quiet. Even if there were dogs barking at night or whatever, the atmosphere would change and it would get very, very still. The air would get almost thick, and then boom, they'd be there. And they used to paralyze me. And what they did once was they showed me, the picture in my head was a syringe. And I felt this, the back of your head, what do you call that, where your neck, your cortex or whatever that is, where that hollow part is in the back of your head and your neck.
Right. The part that's hard to get the hair out of when you shave.
Well, let me tell you, they put a needle back there.
Right.
And it hurt like you know what.
Right.
And then they were gone. Now, what did they? I don't know what that really did. I know I became a little. I think with my feelings anyway. I mean, I'm very heart chakra-ish, if you will, and so. But I know that my intuition was very much enhanced. I trust it even now in a lot of ways.
Well, were you ever? You said there was nothing negative, but were you scared?
I don't think that was.
Were you scared?
But that's not always negative. I know you're not implying that. For me, it was just the whole event, that these bizarre-looking people were in my home with my doors and windows shut. They seemed to know when I was alone because my girlfriend at the time, Sandy, used to work at night. So they would come at night when I was alone. I'm sure that was no coincidence.
Right.
But so the fear thing is something that I had to step through. And I still have that fear, but it's not as intense. But for me, the fear was a metaphor for a lot of things. I mean, I can say that because I've had these visits, I live my life less fearfully. I'm more real. I'm more authentic, if you will. It's easier for me to say I'm sorry. I don't have to be right all the time. I don't feel the separation between myself and other human beings. Not that I did so much in the first place, but it was like my spiritual growth was accelerated. And so for me, it has been a positive experience. Now, with my brother Bud, and people like David Jacobs and what have you, there was a different paradigm. There are people who were having anal probes and sperm and ovum was taken, and that's real. I'm not saying it isn't. I'm just saying that there's another perspective, and I have a right to my perspective as well, because you brought up being a man of color. I think that I'm hypersensitive about that because being a man of color. And I know how in our society, and it's probably more human than racial, but we stereotype. We put people in boxes. And so when people say, well, what do they want? I'm like, what they are you talking about? They're different races. They're different species. They're different agendas.
Well, how tall are you? How tall are you?
I am 6'1".
See, you're 6'1", tall, ravishing black man. Maybe they just didn't want to mess around. That could be the other thing. That
it could be
physical intimidation. And I'm not. I'm not in any way making fun. I'm just saying. You're a big guy.
Intimidated. I don't believe they were intimidated by me at all.
Okay.
But I do feel that, and not in any grandiose sense of the word. I'm not hearing voices or have any messianic inclinations. But I do feel that I was here and that I am here to be a teacher, to model what it is I talk about, to learn to love, to learn how to forgive, to learn to grow and not be afraid of difference,
That's right.
To just evolve. And I think everyone is here for that, but that's just my opinion. And I have to be more concerned with how I do my own thing, what frequency I vibrate on. And so I've learned a lot of lessons from them and through them, and even to this day.
What were the?
And,
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. What do you think the intentions were for the past life references that they showed you?
Well, let me put it in a context as well. I was in the theater in New York, and you live in Los Angeles, so you have to be kind of self-absorbed to be in the theater.
Sure.
And I was, on TV and that kind of thing, and I was, I was living the good life. I mean, I was hanging out. I was, hanging out and partying and all that kind of stuff. And at the time, they're doing drugs and everything. And I think at the time they came in my life, it was like a cold glass of water thrown in my face. And for me, the message was, this is not what you signed up for. This is what you can do.
Right.
You can wind up doing this and chasing fame and all that, and nothing wrong with that. But, everybody's not going to be Denzel Washington. And maybe there's another path for you. And because right after I started having these experiences, I just became more focused, more intentional about what, I'm using the word now, legacy, but what are you here to do, man? Are you here just to be a party guy and try to lay every woman you see, or to be drunk or whatever, or are you here for something bigger? And I chose the latter.
Well, that's always the easy road. Having fun is easy.
Oh man, that was big fun.
Yeah, it's big fun and it's easy. And the tougher road when he hit that epiphany, and I say this to my kids, my daughters all the time. It's so easy to be bad. It's hard. It's tough work to be good. It is. Yeah. It's hard. It's hard. It is just hard.
Well, yeah, and I would say it's just tough to be human. I mean, being a human being is a challenge. And so, and I want to be clear to listeners here, I'm not saying that someone who comes from another dimension or another place, that people have these epiphanies and revelations and they don't have any contact with off-world intelligences. So that's not a prerequisite.
Right.
I know people who have contacts, and I just don't even want to be around their energy. But this is what happened to me. And so one of my first mom-and-pop kind of publisher at Blue Star Publications said, listen, you got to tell people your story. You're a clergy person. People want to hear it. And I said I just became less fearful, and I did it. I said, this is real. Take it, take it for what it's worth, or don't take it at all. Because for me, the bottom line is, again, and I'll probably say this ad nauseum between now and 12:30 my time, is that we're here to learn to love. We're here to learn to grow and to evolve. And so that may take one lifetime. It may take 300 lifetimes, but this is what the game is about.
Did they tell you, either the reptilians or the Greys? I want to get to some interesting stuff. The Jimmy questions that I want to know. Did they tell you where they were from?
No, I never even asked that. I was just so shocked and awed by, first of all, with the reptilians, because there was such a contrast between those and the little, and I put Gray and quotation marks. I was it's just a shock and awe. I didn't have the time. My mind was not even there. Getting over the unbelievability of it.
Right.
You come through my wall, and then you look like that. Right. And I'm just trying to get over the other folk who look like that. And no, they would just put things in my head, those pictures, or they would they did listen to me once when I talked to a friend of mine after I had that needle put in my head.
Right.
And this individual said, look, you got to get a handle on this, man. And they had experiences as well. They said, if you can, just try to set some boundaries. If they're here for your good, whether you pray or whatever, you just got to put that energy out. That we got to have some ground rules here. And I did. It was not in the most functional way. After I got stuck in the head, I stood up. I used to keep a baseball bat. A golf club in my room.
Right.
And and Sandy said, you look the sight standing there in your underwear yelling out the window that they can't keep doing this to you. But it never happened again.
Right,
It never happened again after that.
They
never stuck anything in me like that again.
Let me ask you about this sleep paralysis, because I had an experience similar to yours where something was... I woke up. I was, I couldn't move, and there was something at the foot of my bed, standing over in the corner. Now, what I couldn't do, and I want to know if this is what you went through. What I couldn't do was I couldn't move my head to look down to see what was standing over in the corner of the room. I could move my eyeballs, and I could kind of see down there, but I couldn't move at all. Is that what happened to you?
Yeah, I couldn't move. I had to will myself to move. In other words, I could breathe. It wasn't this paralysis where things were shutting down, but I couldn't move. I had to will myself to. And every time I willed myself to and I started to move, during the early days, they would just go. They would just I don't know what the word is, disintegrate, or, they would just, the molecule, they would just be gone.
Dissolve?
Yes, that's a good word.
Interesting. Did you ever get a chance to see possible? Did they arrive on a craft? Do you know, or were they like a dimensional type of being?
I did not see a craft. And through regression, I with Bud and with Dr. Mundy, I had been on a craft, but I didn't consciously remember that until regression.
Oh.
But they can manipulate time and they manipulate space so that, I mean, I had dreams where, I mean, I'm sure you've had them where they were just so real. And I had been on a ship, or they would get up and I would just go through a wall with them. Or either I used to have a lot of out-of-body experiences, and I would come out, feel myself coming out the top of my head, and they'd be there. And so, but they can manipulate, because there's no such thing as time. Obviously, quantum physics has been telling us that. But
right.
But they know how to manipulate time and space. And I used to have these vivid dreams, and I would just pray. I said, listen, I don't want to have a heart attack when I see you guys. I mean, it's startling. And they, for a while, they stopped coming that way. They would come if I had a dream or what have you. But a friend of mine told me, who was had a lot of contact, said, in your dreams, Michael, if they come into your home in a dream, and, is your lamp in the same place? Is your bathroom in the same place and whatever?
Right,
And I would say, yeah. Right. And they would say, well, then that's not a dream, because in dreams things are distorted. You know how dreams can be, and that. But if everything in your house is in the exact same way it is in waking life, that's not a dream. That's just another way of them contacting you.
Was one or the other a different temperament, maybe meaner or rougher or nicer? I'm referring to the reptilian versus the gray.
They were not mean at all. I mean, like I said, it was.
Well, I mean, were they different? Were they different in their attitudes at all, or did they act?
Not that I could discern.
Okay.
It was just the physicality of. They walked in on the 15th floor of. Because remember the first visit, they came in on a light, on this blue-white light. So I'm assuming they came in on a craft.
Mm-hmm,
I don't know, but that's how my room was lit up. Mm-hmm. The reptilians just walked in through the 15th floor. They just walked in to my room. Like they were outside and they just walked in through the wall.
This is fascinating to me. I've got 80 zillion questions on the front of my frontal lobe, and there is
I got to tell you, man, it'll get your attention. Even today, even now, I will tell you this, because I had a heavy summer of visitations this past summer by more blonde-looking folk, more human-looking people. And we can get into that. I had a blood clot a couple years ago, back in 2013, that they healed, which caused a little bit of not consternation, but I had to go tell my doctor, because I was on Coumadin. We'll get into that if you want. But, these are the three races that I have seen. These other brothers are blonde. They're really, 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 really pale skin. Again, they had these hoodies on, like these Benedictine kind of monk robes. They were huge. Remember, I'm 6'1", and they're kind of standing up in my room, but they looked more human than we did. I mean, than the first two people who came.
Right.
And we're being visited by many, 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 many different races.
Have you ever seen a picture out there and went, that's what I saw?
Yes,
that is correct.
Yes.
So somebody has gotten it right, or was it an authentic picture, or was it an illustration?
No, when I was on George Nuri's show, and I went out to do Beyond Belief, and I found a picture that I used, and they showed it while he and I were talking, and that came close. A good friend of mine who's probably listening, a very talented healer, Rose Marie Starr, drew a picture of, which I'm actually looking at right now, drew a picture of the being that she saw. And I said, well, that's, it's the same beings who came to my home. Maybe they stopped at her house too. She lives in the vicinity. But yeah. I mean, there are, listen, when Whitley did communion, we're not talking about, the Lord's Supper. When he wrote his book Communion, and people saw the picture of that star visitor on the cover, I mean, just that picture, whether it looked exactly like what people saw or not, it would take you to that place when you first saw them.
It took me there. Scared the crap out of me.
Yeah, it'll take you there.
Yes. It scared me.
Yeah, it'll take you there. And it's the fear, at least for me, because it's so bizarre. Your mind has to say, I mean, something just walked through my wall. Okay, then you got to register, it doesn't look like any human being I've ever seen. Then you got to register, now I can't move, or this person is touching me, or whatever. I mean, so it's so many things. Your mind is trying to wrap itself around a reality. I envy those people who have the presence of mind in the beginning. Now, I have the presence of mind now to say, well, hey, what's your name, man? Or where are you from?
Really?
You got a cigarette. You want a beer. I mean, it's hard for me I couldn't do that the first few years.
Right. I do it out of the gate. I probably would. Oh, man. Okay, listen, before we've got so much ground to cover, and obviously we want to get into Scripture and the Bible, and there's so many questions there. So take me to the craft. You were regressed, and did Bud Hopkins do that? Was that the regression?
Well, yeah. Bud took me to the craft. Gene just dealt with them coming in my room. I was screaming and hollering and kicking much more than I recall. Maybe it's the male ego, It's like, did I really scream like a woman like that, or was that someone else? All I remember with Bud was when I was on this table. It was very, very cold, at least to me. It was just a circle. It was very sparse. The beginning of it, I was on the table and just people kind of looking and poking and prodding, but I didn't recall any probes or anything like that.
Right.
And there was a time where I was sitting in a chair and they were showing me symbols, trying to get me to, I'm assuming if I recognize them, it was like this weird-ass writing, hieroglyphic kind of stuff.
Right.
And also, there was only one person in the room, and there was lights. They work with lights and sounds, and I mean, it's really whatever you saw in a sci-fi thing. It was that kind of thing, and I must tell you that I'm 57 years old. I have not. I'm not a big science fiction person. At 57, my daughter and I just started watching Deep Space Nine. I say that so you can say, boy, you're kind of weird. It took you that long. But I'm also glad because I didn't have that to color my perceptions. I was not watching these kinds of shows or anything. But they work with lights and sounds and stuff. And also during the session, I remember there was like a guy who was human looking, but like a biblical figure. It looked like very tall, long beard, like a biblical person would look like, with a robe, that kind of thing. But those things came out in regression.
That's described.
I would not have remembered that if I didn't have the tapes that Bud never gave me a tape, which I found interesting, but Gene Mundy had given me. Listened to them.
When you say biblical, do you what makes you say biblical?
Well, in my mind, now remember, I'm a clergy person, but the robe, the long robe, the unkempt beard, about my complexion, like a stereotypical, like a prophet or something.
Right.
He was there.
One of the wise men.
Yeah. That's a great way to say it.
How long do you think? How long do you think you were on the craft?
Oh my goodness! Now I don't know, but it was a while. I mean, it was a while my time because a lot of the regression was me on the craft, but nothing exciting happening. I mean, mostly, Bud would ask me these questions, and who else is in the room? What's there?
Mm-hmm.
And I'd just be sitting there looking at these lights, green and blue and yellow and orange lights, like they were just shining them in my face as if to get a reaction, but also looking at this kind of a screen, and it was writing there, and I remember why am I don't read this. Why are you showing? I remember that. Why am I staring at this?
Did you ever?
I don't know what this means.
Right.
I don't know what this stuff means.
That is just crazy.
Yeah.
Were you able to? Did you ever go back and try to draw out the symbols that you were seeing to try to make sense of it?
I did, and then I just, at that time, yeah. But I just threw it away. I had a legal pad. I just couldn't decipher it. It was, I probably didn't want to work that hard. I mean, it looked, I didn't know what it was.
Sure. Was there only one room? Did they take you anywhere else? They didn't take you anywhere else?
No, that's all I saw. Now, I've had dreams of being on, really vivid dreams of being on a ship. I mean, huge, where I saw people that I had known.
Oh.
This was last summer, yeah. And I remember going up to a childhood friend who's really not doing well now. And I said, John, it's me, it's Michael. And he looked at me and he started screaming. And then I woke up. Now, I don't know, maybe I didn't look the same way I did now when I went up to him. But he, maybe I had bad breath. It was in the middle of the night. I don't know.
Sure.
But he just screamed. And then I woke up.
When you were on the in the room with Bud, well, you weren't with Bud, but when you were with Bud telling him about being in the room, do you think that was on a craft, or could that have been a room maybe somewhere here on Earth? Maybe it was on the ground.
Well, I didn't know. I felt it was a craft. It was very sterile.
Okay.
It was kind of metallic, and it was round.
Interesting.
And it was a cold table. It's like when you go to the doctor and you got to lay back, and it's like if the air conditioning's on or whatever, and it's chilly. It was that kind of feel.
What does your family think of all of this?
That's a great question. My mom is very open to it. Okay. She is a very intuitive, I call it psychic, because she's a very intuitive person. And so we have some metaphysical interest. And so she has no problem with it. I mean, we talk about it pretty regularly. Now, it fits into her Christian paradigm. God sent them to you, and they're looking out for you. And in some ways, I'm sure they are. Mm-hmm. My stepdad, who raised me, who I grew up with, we just don't even get into it. It's like we won't. Not, he never brings it up. They have my books, but he doesn't get into it. Now, my biological dad, who's died, he was a big sci-fi fan. I mean, I call him late at night. He'd be watching Sci-Fi Channel. But I remember he saw me on Ancient Aliens, and he said, "Son, is there anything you want to talk to me about?"
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
He had to find out through TV.
Yeah, and I said, "Pop." And he said, and he was very cool. He just said, "Okay," as if to say, if that's the story you're sticking with. But no, it was never really an issue, which I'm glad, because there was already enough trauma and stigma that I go through. Just trying to say, well, what is real? What is really going on here? And I wanted to tell you. Talking about post-traumatic stuff now, like tonight, I go to bed. Usually if I'm by myself, I will keep the light on till the last minute.
I know what you're talking about.
Okay, I'm not ashamed to say that.
Nope.
I do. It's not as bad. If, my wife who goes to sleep and blah, blah, blah. Or either sometimes I'll go to bed and I know she's in another room. But yeah, I just kind of,
I went through the same thing, Michael.
They're going to come no matter what,
Right.
and they don't hurt me. But it's just that startling when someone else is in your room.
Yeah, I used to sleep with everything off, lights off, everything dark. And after my little episode, I slept with the TV on and the lights on in that house forever.
Yeah, and I still do. Now, back in October, my publicist, Mark Eddy, we had shared a room at the Edgar Casey conference, and so he was there, and so I didn't have any issue at all. I said, my brother Mark is there, and it was no big deal. But if I'm by myself, if I'm on a trip or whatever, that even when I fly to New York, there's the ancient alien shoots. I mean, I'm in a hotel, man. The light is on until I'm getting ready to hit that alpha state and go to sleep.
I'm so with you. You. Okay, two quick questions. This just got tweeted. How old were you when you described the Excelsior Hotel incident? And did you have anything when you were a child?
Well, I was in my 30s. I was about 34, 33. About 30. Well, I'm bad with math. I'll put it like this. 1989, okay, I'm 57. I was born in 57. You can do the math. December 28th, 1989. So I was in my 30s then. As a child, I had the little orbs and stuff in my room. That reminded me kind of, now that I'm thinking about it, of the light thing. I mean, they would just surround me, and I thought everybody saw them. And I would sit there and just watch. I could sit for hours.
And how old were you?
Oh, God, I had to be about 7.
About 7?
6, 7, yeah.
Do you make a connection now?
I can make that connection now because I think they were kind of beings. Obviously, it's the energy. Someone took a picture last Christmas of the pulpit after I had stepped away for the choir to sing, and their orbs in the picture.
This is just absolutely fascinating to me. I'm going to
take orbs in the picture, yeah. But
well, let's take a. I'm just going to do a station break here. We're not going to actually do a commercial break. This is Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network. This is Bespoke Radio for the Masses. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We're talking with Dr. Reverend Michael Carter. There you go. There's another set of letters.
I wish I had the salary.
Yeah. Oh, man.
I could use the money.
Doctor. It does sound good, though, doesn't it? Doctor.
It does.
Doctor.
Dr. Carter.
Yeah, Dr. Michael Carter. Yeah. Didn't you discover King Tut's tomb? Isn't that? Okay, anyway.
Oh, yeah, that's right. The guy Carter.
Yeah. Okay.
No relation.
Now, as so many years have gone by, and not in direct reference to the fact that you're a reverend now, but when you were going through this in your 30s, did you make any connections to religion with the visitations, or did they reference religion?
Yeah, I did. It was almost like I felt that they wanted me to, but not that they told me to, but I could feel myself being guided. And I read everything I could on the subject, but I read everything I could on comparative religions. I was raised Baptist. That didn't fit anymore. I was looking for answers. I got in. It's interesting when I started having visitations, I was very heavy into metaphysics. It was almost like now I was open to other dimensions and other realities and universal laws and that kind of thing. And so I couldn't stop reading about religion and spirituality and where these beings fit in. And so the short answer is yes. I just devoured everything I could. I have quite a UFO library, if you will. I use it for my research and stuff like that. But it was hard. It was difficult for me in seminary because I went to a very, very prestigious seminary, one of the top seminaries in the country, very liberal, very progressive, rigorous intellectual activity there. But, I kept saying, but these are star people. These are star people. And when my first book was my master's thesis. And I just added my contact and biographical stuff to it. And I must salute Union Theological Seminary because they allowed me to write on that topic. And they didn't shy away from it. A couple of my professors asked me if I wanted to stay on for a PhD.
And you would have been that doctor. You would have been the doctor.
Right, but I'd still be paying for it because I'm still paying for my master's degree. Because I had a partial scholarship. So, I'd be just finding a job now and several $1,000s in debt. And I'm not an academic, really. I mean, I'm not really. I mean, I'm trained, seminary trained, but I'm not an academic PhD person, would want to be tenured at a seminary or that kind of thing. But the point I was trying to make was that, I stand on their shoulders. I stand on the shoulders of Dr. Barry Downing, who is a doctor. He wrote a book back in 1968 called The Flying Saucers and the Bible. He's a Presbyterian minister. We do Ancient Aliens together. We've done some radio shows together. I mean, he's like a hero of mine because I said, oh, my God, here's someone who is in my profession who's going out on a limb and talking about this. Morris K. Jessup, who wrote a book called The Bible and Flying Saucers back in the 50s. He died under mysterious circumstances. Virginia Brasington wrote a book called UFOs in the Bible. So we have some female energy in the mix. And she lived here in Asheville, North Carolina. So there were other clergy people, not many, but there were other clergy before me, and I stand on their shoulders.
Okay, here we're going to bang through about 30 quick questions that I have waiting in the wings. Okay. This is all from Twitter. First question up. We'll try to get through these as quick as possible because I want to get to the Bible. Okay, This is from Master Carpenter. He says, "Welcome, Reverend Carter. What denomination are you affiliated with?"
Hey, brother. I'm with the Unitarian Universalist congregation, denomination, recovering Baptist, if you will, and that's where I toss my hat in the ring with the Unitarian Universalist denomination.
Next question from Mark Dunbar. He says, "Are social Darwinists and religions working together to hide the genetic truth of mankind's beginnings?"
I think there are some who are, because I want to be succinct. If you read, Michael Cremo's work about forbidden archaeology, the thing is that there's a lot riding on history as we know it. People are tenured. A lot of reputations, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears went into the story that we have now, and it's going to be really difficult for people to say, to shift to a new paradigm. I don't know if I want to call it a big conspiracy, but there are some people who are wedded to this view because there's just so much invested.
This comes from...
Like our government, for instance, and free energy and things like that.
We were talking about that earlier.
Yeah.
This is from Dave C. He says, "Did Mary have divinity before becoming pregnant with Jesus or after Jesus' death?"
If you're talking about the church's position on it, Mary always had divinity because the church could not have her making love the old-fashioned way and having Jesus and several kids. But the Bible tells us that Jesus had brothers and sisters. So if you're talking about when this divinity, in quotes, was bestowed on her by the church, well, the Council of Nicaea in 325 CE, so that I'm not quite sure what you mean by divinity, but I'm thinking you're meaning when was it bestowed officially as church doctrine? At the Council of Nicaea, Jesus was born of a virgin. Remember, virgin is in Hebrew is the word Alma, A-L-M-A, and all it means is young girl. St. Jerome tweaked that, and he made it official doctrine that Mary was a virgin. It didn't mean that a woman's hymen wasn't broken in Hebrew. It just meant that she was young. I hope that answers some of your questions.
I'm telling you, we have a smart audience. Isn't it great?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well,
Next,
it makes my job really that much easier.
this is from Mike Babjack. He says,
Hey,
Mike says, is God an alien?
No, God is not an alien, and my new book will explain why, and Jimmy and I are going to talk about why. Now, according to Palladian cosmology, there is a God in a small g who is the God of the human races, but above this God is something called creation, which is an energy, which is not anthropomorphic, which is the all that is. I personally subscribe to that. I like what the Palladians are doing. The danger with saying God is an alien is that we make God in our own image. And we're going to talk about that. Stick around with the Bible. I think the God that we're worshiping in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam is an astronaut. But we'll get more into that, I'm sure.
Okay. Wow, that was heavy, actually. That was very heavy. Okay, this is from Jeremy. What do you think the Pope will... let me read this correctly here. What do you think the Pope will continue to steer the flock with its views opening up on creationism, and will ETs and UFOs be next?
Yeah, he's already been talking about that.
He has.
I mean, first of all, the UN has been having talks with theologians, scientists, and what have you in New York since 2005. You can Google that. Of course, everything on you Google is not true, but it's pretty reliable stuff. You can Google that. But just Google the Vatican and UFOs. It'll give you a whole history. They've long known about this, and I think because they know that something's going to happen soon. Either there's going to be a sighting that you can't say it's a weather balloon, and religion has to be relevant. And I talk about in my book, the new book, that Catholicism will fare very well when this becomes common knowledge, because the Vatican, Catholicism always has, Hinduism is another one. They make room for lesser gods, if you will. They have a hierarchy, the Brahman in Hinduism, but there are other gods who are aspects of the one. There may be a god of destruction, or this is the god of love, or what have you. But they're all part of the same, the holistic, the creation, if you will. Well, same thing in Catholicism. There are various saints. There's Michael and Raphael, and especially in Judaism, they're all aspects of God. And so if you have a cosmology like that, E.T. coming to visit, it's not going to shake you. I mean, you may fall down, you'll get up and dust yourself off. Protestant Christianity does not make room for lesser gods or deities, astronauts, call it what you will. And so they're going to have to do some moving and shaking, in my view, in order to catch up and get on board.
Is I want to continue with the questions, but this is for me. Do you think... now, do you think the Vatican knows something? I mean, they're alluding to it, but...
they always do. Of course they do. But they're not going to come out until... I mean, this is complicated. You got governments talking about this. You've got religion has to be on it. Science has to be... It's gradualism. Because, it's like a chess game. What's going to happen? The whole world we're going to change, because free energy, that's going to get some people uptight. Cancer, diabetes, these things will be things of the past. I'm not talking about a utopia, folks. Believe me. I'm just talking because I don't believe that all these beings are here to sing Kumbaya. I just don't believe that. Just like there are human beings who have issues, if you will, some of them have some issues as well.
Right.
But what I am saying is that the world we know, as we know it, is going to shift, because the boundaries that we set up are not going to be there, especially if these brothers and sisters who visit are benevolent. And so war is going to have to become obsolete. The things we do, because we have this technology. We make drones. We take war. We make night vision goggles. We make lasers. We give shields that you can, like Tel Aviv had that shield back in the summer when Palestinians and Israel were at each other's throats again. And remember, there was a bubble. That's spaceship technology.
We'll probably talk about this again, but when let's
am I making sense, or am I just talking too fast?
Listen, we're staying right on target here.
Okay.
When we're talking about this, what's your feeling? I mean, the status quo is, disclosure happens and anarchy ensues, and there's death and pillaging in the streets.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't either. So tell me why.
I think that's the storyline, because you remember, it's fear, fear, fear. Ebola, fear. ISIS, fear. Putin, fear. Ukraine, fear. Yeah, that keeps people. But if you look at the research, whether it's the Pew studies, PEW, those studies, or 50% of the American people, now we're not talking about the rest of the globe, believe that either we are being visited or we're not alone in the universe.
Right.
50%.
I think it's higher.
That's a huge number.
Yes.
And so there's not going to be chaos in the streets, at least not everywhere. But look at the countries who've already released their files: Britain, Australia, of course, Mexico, France. I mean, these governments have pretty much come clean and said, we know we're not alone. Only the United States is still holding on to this, there's no life on other planets, and to prove it, we have several thousand documents that are top secret to prove to you that they don't exist. I mean, it's like it's like a Woody Allen movie. People don't believe it anymore.
Do you think religion itself would change? Muslim, Islam, Catholicism, Christianity, Buddhism.
I think it would have to change, because the paradigm would have to change. But as I stated before, the Catholicism and Hinduism would have a much easier time of it, because they already make room for other deities, other gods with a small g, if you will.
Mm-hmm,
those religions, which is pretty basically Christianity or maybe Islam. I know Islam would be fine, because Islam talks about other worlds. I mean, in their prayer, they talk about Allah, the Beneficent, the Lord of the worlds. So they're already saying there are other worlds out there. Christianity, Orthodox evangelical Christianity, is going to have a problem. Now, what they do with the problem is now all the beings, okay, they say, yeah, they're extraterrestrials here, but they're all the Nephilim, and they're all evil, and they're all the fallen angels. They still can't get with the program. So they've shifted. There used to be, no, there's no such thing. Now they're saying, yeah, okay, you got me, they're here, but they're all evil. And there's the problem. Because anytime you start saying all, whether it's human beings or off-world intelligences, you created a problem, because you just stereotyped everybody.
This question is from Norik. He says, are we being studied in an experiment? What is your opinion of what is happening?
Well, I think that Marshall Summers, in his book Allies of Humanity, there's some good reading in there that, yeah, we are probably being studied. We're very warlike. I mean, the messages that I've gotten is, at least especially from the Nordic-looking brothers and sisters that have come, is that they're not here to take anybody over. If they wanted to take us over, they could have done that a long time ago. But they're here, the beings I'm talking about say, we're here to take people to the next phase of evolution, to help you raise your vibration, but you fight too much. You're too violent. You are primitive. Your religions are primitive. The way you treat the earth is primitive. So, yeah, people are studying. I talk about this with my friend Rose Marie. I told you, the healer. What do you think, these missile silos that the UFOs are hovering around, and they shut down our missile silos, or they shoot down our dummy missile warheads? They're sending a clear message that we're watching you. You are primitive. You are going to destroy yourselves. You split the atom already twice, and that affects us. So it may not be these altruistic. It could be just being practical. You want to destroy yourselves, fine, but when you split the atom, you also affect other people in the neighborhood, and we're here to watch, to monitor that.
Well, I don't think it's a coincidence that, since 1947, since 1945, but 1947, after things tended to have changed, we haven't had a nuclear exchange. We have not, and I don't think that
we know of. I mean, people, yeah, we've come to the brink.
But nothing has happened.
Right.
I don't think it's a coincidence. I really don't.
I don't either.
I
don't either. I agree with you.
This comes in from Dale Romero. He's actually one of our producers here. Dale says, ask the Reverend. I know why he's asking this question, by the way, and we'll talk about it. But ask the Reverend how they walked. What was the motion? How did they walk?
Well, they didn't walk. They kind of like floated. There wasn't one, at least the ones I saw, there wasn't one step. Like I just walked across my living room. It was almost like a kind of floating, jerky type motion. At least this is from the gray folk.
Interesting.
So I didn't see them walk at all. I just saw them kind of float.
When you said jerk, what did you mean? What do you mean by that?
It was almost like they were awkward in their body. It was stiff. It was the arms when they swung a little bit. It was I can't explain. It was not graceful, but they didn't. I never saw them walk like we would walk. It was almost like at least from the waist down, they just kind of floated.
Dale had an encounter, and when he was younger, and the 3 ETs that he saw. He says that his description, and he told me this 30 years ago when we were kids, and it never left my brain the way he described it. He said that they vibrated. You know, there was a vibration there. There was like that they were blurry almost, and it was a sideways motion to their movement. And when you said jerk, I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, it was like, from the waist down, and I'm talking about the grays now because the other reptilian, after he walked through the wall, it wasn't like he just stepped right back out. It was like one step, he was out. But the gray, it was jerky, the arms didn't swing with a grace that we had. And, but their legs, they didn't walk to me. They just kind of, it was almost like they just kind of floated, like there was a cushion underneath them or something.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
Interesting. I've got so many. There's so much stuff going on Twitter. Okay, let's bang through these.
Okay.
Okay.
That's right. We got a lot.
We've got a lot to go here. What do you think about Dr. Carla Turner's opinion on the religious aspect of abductions?
Wow. I think there is a religious aspect, and by that I may take religious and put spiritual there. It's when you go through this, like some people compare it to NDEs, near-death experiences. I think there is a transformational aspect to that, but I divorce it from, like Betty Andreasen and what have you, where she just put it into her Christian paradigm. I think it's bigger than that.
Right.
But there is a religious significance to this because it's transformational if you allow it to be. Even if you say they're demons, there's a transformation that has to take place because of your reality shifts. Your reality, what you thought was, this 3D kind of world, now you have to digest it. Man, I don't have a clue.
Next,
what's going. It's humbling.
Let's just. I've got so many here. Let's just keep bang these out. Did you ever use Jesus' name to relieve yourself of their presence?
I did, and one of them laughed at me. And this was not too long ago, because this summer I had some visits from some energies I wasn't quite sure of, and I felt that old fear come up. And mentally, I said to myself, "I'm surrounded by the white light of Christ," which I hardly ever even used the word Christ for other theological reasons, but I needed to use something, and I heard a laugh.
You mean like, ha, ha, ha,
right, but they left. They did leave. Now, I was on a radio show a couple of nights ago with an evangelical brother, and he said that it always works. And he believes they're all demons. He said, but when he uses Jesus Christ. Now, people could say, well, since, Michael, you don't believe that Jesus is a Savior, maybe it didn't work for you. So, I mean, we could go through those machinations. But that was that one time. that I use that. And, you know, I don't know if there's a formula. I don't know if that's helpful.
Would you use Jesus' name again?
No.
Okay.
No,
All right.
I would.
That's interesting. This is from Nancy Nurse. She says, is there any correlation between archons and demons? Of course, we're going to get back to demons here in a bit. Any correlation between archons and demons?
Archons. I don't know what that term means.
Okay, bad. Okay. Let's move on. Not a big deal. Let's see. Did any of the beings sit on you when you were paralyzed?
No, but they would get on the bed. The bed would sink. There was one time when I was paralyzed and I didn't see anybody in the room. But someone had gotten on the bed because I felt the weight of the bed sink. But nobody, well, a reptilian, the first time, the second time a reptilian came, it felt like they were on my back.
Oh.
That I remember.
Okay.
It felt like they were on my back.
Holding you down or?
I just felt, I was already paralyzed, but I felt that they were like straddling my back.
Oh, that's interesting. I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
This comes in from Rick, and so I'm going to.
But it wasn't like a prostate exam.
Right. Yeah. Let's make that clear.
Yeah.
This comes in from Rick. I think Rick came in a little late, so I'm going to paraphrase his question. He wanted to know if there were lights involved and what colors they were. You did say blue, so let me ask you this: were the lights?
There was a cobalt blue light and there was a white light. When the first one I had, December 28, 1989. The only other lights I saw, for instance, when they used to do things to my throat when they came in, but it would be like a green light. It would just shoot out of their hands. And it was very interesting because afterwards people would talk about my voice. You have a very soothing voice. You have a very healing voice. I never heard anything about my voice until after that, so I felt like they were working with that chakra. Now, in Bud's, I will repeat, in Bud's regression, the only lights I saw, I was sitting in a room, and it was green lights flashing. There were the cobalt blue light that I saw, an orange light, a yellow light, and I was like hypnotized. I couldn't take my eyes off of them.
Did you ever find any changes in your intuitive abilities after this?
Yes, they heightened. It heightened after the needle in the back of the head, but I found that I could, and I still can, if I'm on a beach and people, you don't have your shirt on or whatever, if I stare, I can see the skeletal system of the individual.
Am I wearing socks right now?
Probably not.
Oh, see, you're intuitive. That's pretty good. You're good. Let's see. Alex Collier. Do you know Alex?
I just saw his picture on. I Googled George Adamski the other day, and I just saw Alex's picture there.
Okay, that's weird. See, somebody asked. See, intuitive. That's strange, isn't it?
Just yesterday. I'm assuming he's got something to do with the phenomenon, but yeah, Alex Collier.
Do you have any Native American ancestry?
Yes, I have Cherokee and Creek.
How much?
On my mother's side, I don't know the blood quantum, but interesting question. But my great grandfather is white, whatever that means, and Cherokee. My biological dad, his mother was Cherokee and African. So a fair amount. It's not a minuscule amount. But you also have to remember that to be a member of the Cherokee Nation, you can have a quarter, as little as like a quarter, if you can prove it, native blood, and they will accept you into the tribe. But yeah, a lot of. I used to speak a little Cherokee. When I was in New York, there was a high concentration of a lot of First Nations people, but believe it or not, a lot of African Cherokees, because Cherokees owned slaves.
That's right. Well, you might be part owner in a casino somewhere and might not even
like
know.
I said, brother, I got a family to support. I could use it.
Oh, man.
But that's a great question, and thank you. They all are, but thanks for asking. Sorry I didn't know about the Archon. Maybe they can tell me what that means.
Well, Archons, and we had Jay Widener on the show last night, and he's a big Archon researcher. And what he refers to as Archons being off-planet, that they're just bad, and they have bad intentions, and we're all born good. We're all born good and innocent, and Archons just want to take over anybody that is vulnerable and steer them in the wrong path so they can fight against the good side of the earth, the followers of Horus.
Well, then I can relate with that a little bit. Yeah, there are. Some people would say that the jinns in the Quran are these mischievous angels or beings. That could be the same thing. I want to be clear again. I do believe that there are off-world intelligences who do not have our best interest at heart. But what I also wrestle with, so I don't have a definitive answer, Einstein said the basic human existential question is the universe friendly or not? I happen to believe that it is. And so, as I've gotten older and I've explored some of this stuff, it's hard for me to believe, the thing about Christianity that I was raised with is that there was a big scoreboard, God 6, the devil 10. It was like this competition, this dualistic thing.
Sure.
And I'm like, now, either creation is creation or it's not. And yes, people can say, well, there's a battle of good and evil. I don't particularly believe that anymore. That's not to say there's no such thing as Hitlers and things like that. But I think that's all part of a grand design. And so I just don't believe in a dualistic universe, because if you do, then God's always losing. Because it seems like the devil, if you believe in the devil's winning. We have wars, we have disease, we have racism, we have all this. And so people start focusing on that, and quantum physics tells us that what you focus on, you create. So I wrestle with that, and I've come up on the side that, not that I keep my head in the sand, but things do balance out. Reincarnation helps balance things out. That was a long answer, but I'll be quiet now.
No, it's a great answer. You and I were talking about this earlier today before the show, and I don't believe me. I'm not Mr. Innocent guy. I'm not.
No, none of us are. Please.
No, and I will never go there. But I've always, since I was a child, I've always looked at life very simply: be nice, be cool, love your friends, love your family, and just live your life that way. I don't have my head in the sand either. But I'm never, ever, ever mean. I'm just not. It's not what I'm about. And with that, this question just came in, and you and I were talking about this today. So let's just ask this directly. Is there a grace in our primitiveness that we need to learn?
Interesting. My wife, who's a minister, just talked about grace a couple Sundays ago. I'm going to be honest with you. I have a problem with the word grace. It's my problem. Grace to me implies that, I would strike you down, but because I'm going to be merciful and have grace, you'll be okay. I think that, so maybe we won't use the word grace, but I know what you mean. I think that there's a part of us that needs to acknowledge that we are all alike, and that let's say, my best friend gets an inoperable cancer, and that there's something in me that has to say, you know what, Michael, that could be you. And that's, it's humbling, but our life paths may be different. And so that person, this path, this life, they were supposed to get cancer to learn whatever lessons they needed to have. So I would say, so we don't quibble, that I think you would call it grace. I think we are deserving of the good that comes into our lives as well as the not so good, because we cannot grow if it's not the not so good. So that's the best way. My wife is probably better with the word grace. I just had and maybe because it was just so much indoctrinated in me. Well, you're a sinner, but because of grace, you're going to be okay. And I'm like, well, maybe it's not about that. Maybe it's about the way I live my life and the laws of the universe and that kind of thing. If I do think that there is something in us that needs us that we need to be humble about. At the same time, we're also children of the Most High. So it's walking that fine line between hubris and being humble.
Sure.
Another long answer, but I'm sorry, brother, or sister, whoever asked that. That may not have answered your question, but that's the best I can do with grace. I just, at 57, I still have trouble with it.
This is Fade to Black, Bespoke Radio for the Masses. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We are talking to Reverend Michael Carter. And now, we talked about this earlier. Now we're going to, let's just fully get into the Bible. But there was one thing that you mentioned earlier that I want to go back and address since we're going to jump into the Bible. You mentioned a sulfur smell. And with your first encounter, that smell is always...
Matches in my house.
Well, it's always been associated with demonic things and demons. So what do you think? Do you think
this is what I think, and you and I talked about this. I think Jesus says that a kingdom divided against itself can't stand. Now, do I seem demon-possessed to you? You don't know me, but the way I live my life, you see me on Ancient Aliens, you go by the fruits. People are so easy to get into this fear thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, listen to that. Boy, if you smell sulfur, there must be a demon around.
Right.
So that's not the way you said it, and that's not the way you meant it. But do you see the fears that we come up with? The beings that I have encountered have helped me on the path of learning to be a whole, integrated, authentic human being. And, there's no demonology there. How can I be talking about love and ministering to a church and then have demons come at me? And if I sound a little harsh, I get that way sometimes because we're so fear-based.
Well, 2,000 years ago, and again, we were talking about this earlier, 2,000 years ago, an ET encounter happens, and the ETs, the beings smell of sulfur, and, whoever's running the village at that time is going to maybe suggest, hey, that's the devil. And that association with sulfur and ET and the devil has been suggested over time. Is that a possibility?
It could be a possibility, but do you see what's going on there? Because it happened 2,000 years ago means it's still happening now. And that's what's going on. We still cling to these primitive beliefs.
Right.
And this is why we bomb the you-know-what out of people. This is why we have these religious wars, because we haven't evolved. I mean, Dr. King talked about it. The Star people talked about it. Our spirituality has not caught up with our technology. And so we are dangerous because we have these primitive beliefs, but yet we got all this technology. It's scary.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to be harsh, but I'm just saying we have to start examining what we believe. Because just because someone said something 5,000 years ago, I mean, in the book of Leviticus, you can't touch a pigskin, okay?
Right.
In early Judaism, okay, there goes the NFL.
Right.
There goes LeBron. There's going to be a lot of black men unemployed.
Right.
We can't talk.
Right.
We can't touch a pigskin.
Right.
So you get my point.
Right. I do. Do you believe in the end times, actually? And is ET involved in that?
I think that it depends. The end, and I'm not trying to be cute. For every end, there's a new beginning. I do believe in the Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, which says that there are many probabilities. But if you have half the planet raised in a Christian paradigm, in an Orthodox Christian paradigm, and they're focusing on the end times, we can actually create that. So, yes, the book of Revelation, I think John is seeing a possibility. It doesn't mean that we have to blow ourselves up. It doesn't mean that we have to poison the planet with wormwood and the meteor and all that, but it does mean that we're responsible for our future, and that if we want, you create the future you want to have. So if you want to focus on apocalyptic stuff, then you're going to create it. If you want to focus on people seeing past the illusion of separateness, then that's what you focus on.
One of the most famous quoted parts of the Bible is Ezekiel and what he saw.
Yeah.
And not only in an extraterrestrial context, but just in a fascinating. If you just take the Bible literally, it's a mechanical device that he is seeing, and it's a remarkable thing to quote. And we've all speculated. It doesn't matter before the ancient alien movement and before Van Daniken
and ancient astronaut theory.
Before all of that, everybody's quoted that part of the Bible. So let's start right there, because it's a good point. It's a good place to start.
Well, it's a good place to start for two reasons for me. The first thing is, just to cut to the chase with that, Joseph Blumrich, who was a former NASA engineer, wrote a book called The Spaceships of Ezekiel.
Yes.
And what he did, now he worked for NASA, and what he did was he took the specifications that Ezekiel saw while he was on the River Chabar, and he drew this spaceship. You can Google it. He's copyrighted it. He's since made his transition, Mr. Blumrich. And so that will give you a perspective on this ship, because he is talking about, if we look at it with an open mind, he is talking about a craft. But so I want to be clear with that. You can look up The Spaceships of Ezekiel. You can purchase the book on Amazon. It's a great book. But another thing, the thing that gets me with Ezekiel is because this is a passage in Ezekiel that for me gets me to thinking about why that the God we worship is an astronaut in the Bible, but is not really the creator, the creation energy that we're talking about. In the book of Ezekiel, I'm looking at the Hebrew translation.
Can you read it to us?
Yes, I'm going to read it to you. It's Ezekiel chapter 4, and it is verse 12. Now, the context is the Lord. Now, remember, in the Bible, sometimes the Lord and God are used interchangeably. Sometimes I think the Lord is an astronaut or the commander of a ship. And sometimes they say God. But here it says the Lord is telling Ezekiel what to do. Now, this is the original Hebrew translated into English. He's telling Ezekiel to eat a barley cake. It says, eat it as a barley cake. You shall bake it on human excrement before their eyes. So, said the Lord, shall the people of Israel eat their bread unclean among the nations to which I will banish them. Okay, I'm thinking, oh, this is not literal. This is just a metaphor. He just said this is how Israel will eat their bread. But then the next verse, Ezekiel says, but then I said, Lord God, my person was never defiled, nor have I eaten anything that died of itself, or was torn apart by beast from my youth until now, nor has foul flesh entered my mouth. In other words, he's saying, look, brother, why do I have to do this? I keep kosher. The Lord answers him, okay, see, I allow you cow's dung instead of human excrement. Prepare your bread on that. What kind of God would ask a human being to eat excrement? And then, after you try to debate with this God, hey, what are you doing? Why? Hey, okay, I tell you what, don't eat cow's dung instead. Now, nobody's going to preach that on Sunday, but it's right there. And common sense would ask, why would a God ask someone to do that? Now, I spoke to someone the other night on a radio show. He said, well, if God asked me to eat manure, I would do it. Well, I had to say, well, brother, not me.
Not me either.
Not me. And so these are the little things. And this is in the book of Ezekiel. But if we go to the book of Jeremiah, The book of Jeremiah, chapter 13, verse 14. This is what the Lord says. I will smite them one against the other, parents and children alike, declares the Lord. No pity, compassion, or mercy will stop me from destroying them. I cannot, in good conscience, worship a being who would tell me to do that. I cannot worship a being who is jealous. What kind of God is jealous? Now, of course he's jealous. Yahweh is jealous because there are other ETs in the area who are trying to carve up that part of the world.
Right.
Now, we've been taught that, oh, well, no other gods. You shouldn't have money as a god. You shouldn't have sex as a god. And that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. But he's not talking about that. He's saying that you shall have no other gods before me. And he's talking about, and so I started to rethink everything I knew and everything I was taught. I'm looking at the book of Isaiah, the New Revised Standard Version. This is what I used in seminary. And Isaiah is saying in verse 21, chapter 40, it is he who sits above the circle of the earth, and its inhabitants are like grasshoppers, who stretches out the heavens like a curtain. How did this man know? Because I don't know about you. Right. I was taught the earth was flat until Columbus. Right. This man is saying 6,000 years ago that not only is the earth a sphere, but its inhabitants are like grasshoppers, which means he's looking down on the sphere.
That's right. At a lot of things. Yes.
Yes. And so, and when I was in seminary, I would ask these questions, and my Old Testament professor was very gracious. She was also very brilliant, Dr. Phyllis Tribble. And she said, what we all should say sometimes, I don't know. I don't know why or that. Yeah, I don't know. But that was an honest answer. It was an honest answer. But okay, so we look at the Elohim, we look at Genesis 6:4. When the sons of God come, of course, we all know this, and made love the old-fashioned way of thinking to the earth women. And they created giants in those days who were hybrids. They were hybrids. But I started to look at, and probably Goliath was of this strain, but I started to look at Yahweh. He's got a terrible temper. He's always concerned with sexuality. All the men have to be circumcised. And you can't mix with other tribes. So he's got a xenophobic thing going on.
Right.
Can't mix with xenophobic. You've got to only obey me. In the book of Leviticus, I can't find the chapter, but you can look it up. He's telling the Israelites how much to charge for male and female and children slaves. Of course, you can see where that would get on my nerves. And I'm saying, what kind of God would tell you how much to charge for slaves? And it started me on this journey. Now, I'd already had my contact experiences now. So I'm starting to look with fresh eyes. And I want to be clear. I love the Bible. I love its wisdom. In some cases, I love its poetry. But I also know that it's written by people with a full point of view. It's not the inerrant Word of God. How do we know that? Well, because some of the mistakes that are in the Bible. And that doesn't mean that it doesn't have a value. In the book of Exodus, chapter 33, verse 11, and the Lord spoke to Moses face to face as a man speaks to his friend. That's in chapter 11. But if you go down to chapter 20, he says, you cannot see my face, for no man can see my face and live. Well, wait a minute. You just told me that Moses spoke to God face to face as a man speaks to his friend. That's in verse 11. What changed between verse 11 and verse 20?
With all of that, the one thing that is, it can't be denied today, and with us growing up and becoming smarter, I would like to think, everything seemed to come from all gods. It doesn't matter what religion. Everything came from the stars. Everything came down from the heavens. Everything came from there to here.
Yes.
Doesn't it? Let's just be sensible about this. They were seeing something, and they described it the best way that they could.
This is what I talk about in the book. Just indulge me for one other.
Oh,
one
I'll
thing.
indulge you all night.
Listen.
Go for it.
Listen, another thing here in 2 Kings 19, 2 Kings chapter 19, there's a passage, okay? You can read it. I won't read it now. It's fairly long. But if you go to Isaiah chapter 37, they're word for word identical. Now, hundreds of years are between when 2 Kings was written and Isaiah. And when you read those verses, it's almost plagiarized. They are word for word identical. There's no way to explain that. Now, we can, we're going through Ezekiel. I'm jumping around because I know with time.
Well, but let me stop you there, Reverend, if you don't mind,
Okay.
Michael. Why do you think they're identical?
Well, I think because whoever was writing them made a mistake. I mean, I really think it's just that simple. The point I'm trying to get to is that these are human beings. It's word for word identical. It's like I wrote something, a writer writes something in 1920 in a book, and then in 2014 in the same book, it's word for word identical. But we're supposed to realize that this is the inspired word of God now. This is literal.
And why do you think? How is it possible?
Well, I think it's possible because, remember, we don't have, especially with the New Testament, when I'm talking about biblical scholarship, we don't have the originals of anything.
Right.
Now, we have the originals of some Old Testament stuff, surely. But so when people say it's the inerrant word of God, how can it be when we don't have the originals? We don't even have copies of the original. And so you start to say, well, wait a minute now. Then what is really going on? And people wrote and they changed things. I just told you about Saint Jerome, who changed Alma, who made Alma mean virgin. He changed that from the Hebrew when it was supposed to mean young maiden. Now it means a woman who hasn't had her hymen broken. But we know Mary had children because you can Google brothers and sisters. Jesus had brothers and sisters.
Right.
You see?
Yeah.
So there was things that were tampered with. We look at another thing with Yahweh is, this whole genetics. Every time, I mean, I'm being facetious, but Gabriel has a great job because everywhere he goes, a woman gets pregnant. Now, they're older women. And it's not always Gabriel. I mean, when the angels come to Sarah and Abraham, they say, it's translated, she's beyond the ways of women, which means she's in menopause, but she becomes pregnant. Samson's mother becomes pregnant. She doesn't even get a name, but his father's name is Manoah. And so she gets pregnant and she has this Superman. Miriam, Jesus' mother, Mary, but in Hebrew it's Miriam. Of course, we know the story there with the star that was really probably a ship, but also John the Baptist. Gabriel comes and visits John the Baptist's mother, Elizabeth, and tells her that you're going to have a child. Gabriel gets around. He's in the Quran. He's the one who tells Muhammad to recite, and Muhammad recites the Quran. I say that everywhere you see angel, if you put E.T. there, the Bible makes much more sense. Because angel simply means messenger in Greek. It doesn't mean they had wings. I think our ancestors put wings there because to let people know that they could fly. And for those of you who say you've seen angels with wings, I'm sure you have. I'm not saying there are none, but I'm just saying these beings in the Bible, they don't have wings. They eat. Okay.
Have you ever, Michael?
They eat food.
Michael, I have to ask you: have you ever taken passages in the Bible and literally put in ET instead of angel, and then read it back to yourself?
Yeah, that's how I got through my first book, Alien Scriptures.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's a whole new book.
Well,
a whole new Bible, I should say. It's a whole.
Well, it is if you look at it that way. If if we go from, if we go from the liberal point of view, that everything is metaphor and they didn't really mean what they say, to the more conservative point of view, where the Bible is, they are telling the same thing. Now, some of these stories are far-fetched. I mean, I forget which book it's in, when an angel is talking, when a donkey, Balaam's ass, the story of Balaam's ass, the donkey talks. Now, maybe there was some manipulation going on. I mean, that's far-fetched, but nothing's far-fetched when you've seen people walk through your walls.
Right.
When people see
right,
ships.
Right.
You see, so I'm just saying that it's our ancestors telling us what they were trying to explain. There's no, in the Exodus story, what's so important about that is that there's no Jewish religion until after the Exodus. What's doubly important is that there's no Christianity, because Christianity comes out of Judaism. And of course, Islam is the product of both. But, so we have the pillar of cloud by day, the pillar of fire by night. By day, it's a cloud. It follows. There's a cloud around it. Modern day UFO sightings. Sometimes UFOs hide in clouds or what have you. It stops, and the people camp underneath it. At night, it glows. It's the pillar of fire. It's unidentified, and it's flying. And this is how the Jewish religion gets started. After the Exodus, then there's the Ten Commandments and the dietary laws and what have you. Very important.
Well, let's go back to Ezekiel's wheel for a second, because you said that most of your religion happened after your first encounter.
Most of my religion didn't happen after the first encounter. I started looking at religion in a different way. I started studying other cosmologies, whether they were Native American, who talk about coming from the Cherokee, talk about coming from the Pleiades. I looked at Hinduism,
right,
and the Vimanas, and the Mahabharata, which sounds like a story of aerial warfare. Looking at obviously Christianity,
mm-hmm,
and Buddhism, and these types of religions and philosophies, and they all have some type of story
commonality, yes,
where there is something coming from the sky. There's a being that brings wisdom. The Mayan Popol Vuh. Whether you go back to the ancient civilizations of Egypt and the Mayan and the Aztecs and Atlantis, they're all talking about sky beings.
Well, exactly. And so what I was referring to earlier is you weren't a reverend yet. You were still acting in New York. But after your first encounter, then when you go back and read Ezekiel and that passage next with a different set of eyes, what do you think Ezekiel was actually trying to say? What was he seeing?
Well, I think it's pretty clear. He's seeing a craft. And he's taken up into the craft by the Lord. And he talks about the Lord sitting on a throne. I think the Lord is sitting in a cockpit.
Right.
And so, I mean, if you go back and read it with different eyes now, they're like, as you said, they're using the language of the day to try to explain what they saw.
What do you think
if there's any doubt, I mean, when we get to the New Testament and Jesus tells in the book of John, my kingdom is not of this world. He talks about his Father. Well, if your mother is human and your daddy isn't, then you're not human.
What do you think is the best example of that? Aside, putting Ezekiel aside, is there another example that you think is?
Well, again, the Exodus story. I mean, this is a craft.
Yeah,
it is
definitely,
a craft.
Definitely.
They're talking about a craft. It hovers over them. It leads them. It's something in the sky. This is what an unidentified flying object is. It's something in the sky that is intelligently guided, and that we cannot, that we cannot say what it is. I think the Star of Bethlehem is another great example. I mean, it's up there. Ezekiel wears the crown, but it's up there with, here's a ship Stars don't fly across the sky and shine lights down on mangers. If they did, the whole gravitational pull of the Earth would be disrupted, and you want to talk about tsunamis and tidal waves and what have you. But this craft leads Mary and Joseph, leads to Egypt, leads the wise men, and it hovers over a manger and shines a light down. I've never seen a star do that.
Neither have I.
I probably never will. and so Jesus is talking about my kingdom is not of this world. I am from above, you are from below. I mean, it really doesn't get any plainer than that.
Especially back then when we were supposed to be at the center of the universe and there was nothing else.
Right. But I want to be clear that for me, even if what I'm saying is true, and I believe it is, that it doesn't take away from his message or his ministry of love, or compassion for the indigent and less fortunate, for being one with the Father. That's the language, that's what he calls it, the Father. I think he was talking about his father was an extraterrestrial. But see, I think that ancient astronauts have thrown the baby out with the bathwater. I think we've gone too far in the sense of, well, God is an astronaut. Really? And so what about the teachings, though? What about those teachings? Even the 8th century prophets, Ezekiel, Amos, these men, they're talking about justice. They're talking about political justice. They're talking about feeding the widow and caring for the orphan. Well, we can use those teachings today.
Well, and what about the references to manna as well? From heaven, from the skies.
Well, this is what they were feeding the people with from the craft. Now, who knows what it was? Who knows what it was? It could. They said it's bread from heaven. Who knows? It could have been something to help control them, or to. I don't know, but it was coming from the craft. So here you have something flying over top of you that's even giving you nourishment for your journey.
Oh, somebody just tweeted, and we have to touch upon this. What do you think about the Gnostic Gospels?
I think, I do a whole section on the Gnostic Gospels in my, Gnosticism, period, in my new book. I think they're very valuable. I think that, Elaine Pagels did an excellent treatise on the Gnostic Gospels. Of course, the Gospel of Thomas is a sayings gospel. There are no stories of Jesus, but just sayings, some of his famous sayings, but that are not found in the gospel stories. But I think that they're very important. They will lead Christianity. They will take it to the next level, because Gnosticism is about following your own individual voice, that God is not outside of you, that this energy is all-encompassing, that we're swimming in it, and that if you don't need a priest, you don't need a minister, you don't need anybody to tell you what your truth is or to navigate your connection with the universe, that is within you. And this is what Jesus talks about when he says, the kingdom of heaven is within you. But we're raised that everything is so external. God is Santa Claus. If I'm naughty, I'm going to be barbecued for the rest of my life. If I'm nice, then I go to heaven. Do you see the simplicity? Do you see the childlike belief in those kinds of statements? And better, and other than this, and if you don't believe why I believe, then you're going to burn in hell.
Right. And there's no reason for it.
No.
If you know what I mean, more in a literal sense. Well, let me back up and touch upon this. It's the one question that I think we're all thinking. Was Jesus E.T. when he says he's from another world?
I think so. I think so. I think so. I think that his ministry was showing us what a human being could be like, to live a committed life. We don't have time to go into it now about his possibly being married and with kids. We do know there's a possibility he may have survived his crucifixion. Why? Well, just simple science. when first of all, people lived for days on the cross. Jesus was only up there, only being nailed to a piece of wood, but you know what I mean, for a few hours, 6 hours maybe. I forget the gospel. He was crucified at 9, and by 3 they had to take him down. But the point is that he was, even Pilate was surprised that he had died so soon. And when the centurion stabbed him in the rib cage, what came out? Blood and water. Well, folks, dead bodies don't bleed when they're hanging perpendicular. Dead bodies don't bleed. If he was dead, all the blood would settle at his feet, so he wouldn't have bled at all.
If we take,
but it says in the scriptures, out from his side came blood and water. Well, that's a clue.
If we take it, some of those passages literally, are we talking? Oh man, I'm just going to go there. I'm going there. I'm going direct. Are we talking possibly teleportation? Do you look at it that way with the resurrection? Is if we take it in a literal sense?
Well, I think we have to take our ancestors for what they were trying to say, and there's no secret. There's nothing hidden when I say, I stabbed this brother and blood and water came out. There's nothing to hide there. The only thing you have to say was, wait a minute, then how can he be dead? Now, when he gets out of the tomb and they're talking about these young men in dazzling raiment and glowing in white, well, there was dazzling raiment when that gray came in my house with that dazzling aluminum foil suit.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying it was a gray at the thing, but you start to say, well, wait a minute. Who are these people? When he goes up in a cloud, okay, when he leaves, he gets in a cloud. Now, our ancestors knew that you don't ride on clouds, but that's the way that they said it because it probably came out of a cloud or had a cloud around it. But no, they know that you're not going to get up and ride on a cloud. But that's their nomenclature. Remember, Jesus' Jewish ancestors in the Exodus, it was a pillar of cloud by day. It was a pillar of fire by night. Jesus leaves in a cloud. He goes where? Up in the sky.
Yeah, I'm reading in Twitter right here. Allison just tweeted, transfiguration in the cave was teleportation. And I just think...
You could definitely look at it that way, to see Moses and Ezekiel. I mean, it was Moses. It was Moses and Jesus and, oh, Lord, forget the other person who was there. We could look at it that way, but that's how we need to look at it now, without losing the message of love, without losing the prophets, and they were flawed because the 10 Commandments were not for Gentiles. They were not for the uncircumcised ones. Those were the rules that Yahweh gave you on how you will treat other Jewish people, other people in this tribe. Because if it was for everybody, then they wouldn't have gone into the land of milk and honey and killed all the men, women, and children. If thou shalt not murder.
That's right. That's right. And again, if you take it literal, that's exactly how it reads.
Yeah.
Dave C. just tweeted. He said, "So, if the Bible is all about ET, then is there no spirituality or hope for eternal life through Christ?"
I don't, okay, I didn't say the Bible's all about E.T., brother. I just said a couple of seconds ago that we throw away the message of love and we throw away the message of justice at our peril. The second part of your question is about theology. If that theology works for you, if it makes you a more loving and more committed and more authentic human being, then you can find that in the Bible. For me, that does not work for me anymore because it separates. I get this through Christ, and if you don't, then, we're not together on that. I don't think we have to live alike to love alike. If you can still get the message of the man you call Christ out of this book, then good for you. The only thing I would challenge you is to watch out where that separates you from other people. And by that I mean there are many ways to God. If I want to go to New York and you fly and I hitchhike and Jimmy walks, We're still going to the same place. We're going through different ways. It's just that throughout history, whether it's the Crusades, whether it's what's going on now, people will say, well, Christ is the only way. And I just don't believe that anymore. And I look around and I see the trouble and the death and destruction that is caused by religions, whether it's Islam or that I have the only way. So the answer is, if you can still use that message, why not? I still get the message of love and inclusiveness, but I just don't say it's exclusive. In other words, you can find love in other venues. You can get it from the Dalai Lama. You can get it from Sufism.
Okay, I'm tweeting out now. I know I've kept you up a little bit late, but do you want to take?
No, it's fine. It's great.
Oh, you want to take a couple of phone calls really quick?
Yeah.
323-825-5045. I'm tweeting and talking at the same time. It is always dangerous to do this.
Oh, my Lord. I'm just glad you're not driving.
Yeah, you got that right. Okay, so I just tweeted that out. Okay, 323-825-5045. Let's take a couple of quick calls before we wrap up the night. And thanks for hanging on with us. So now,
anytime, Jimmy. I hope we do it again. Maybe next time we'll get into my new book.
Somebody just tweeted, "We've got to get your wife on the show the next time."
Oh, Lord.
No, not really. Okay, all right. So what do we do? What do we do? Where are we today? And the message from E.T. to you, if you've gotten one. Oh, and the other question is, did you ever download anything? Did they ever download anything? Or did you come away with anything?
The only thing I'm coming away with is what I'm coming away with you guys now, is that we need to learn what it means to love. We need to this is not a new message. It's been going on for several thousand years. And I'm just here. Obviously it's a difficult message because people are still having a hard time with it. People have lost their lives for it, whether it was King or, other people. It's that in order for us to go to the next stage of evolution, we have to become more self-aware. We have to look at the more primitive in us, and I'm talking about our religious beliefs. So we can go to the next level of evolution, which is to overcome the separateness, which is overcoming I'm saved and you're not, which is overcoming using the planet as a springboard, which is overcoming coveting our neighbor. This is all it ever has been. This is what evolution is about. And we are in a place that if we are not careful, we will wind up destroying ourselves. It's an old message. It's nothing sexy. It's nothing exciting, but it's what we need to do because we're destroying ourselves and the planet.
Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Say hello to Reverend Carter. How are you? Who's calling?
This is Bear from Santa Clara, and hi, Reverend Carter.
Hey, how are you?
I have a question.
Yes, brother.
I'm okay. I'm pondering this question you had about poop.
Okay.
And being a bear, I was wondering, well, is it appropriate to put poop on a stick? Or what was the meaning of that? Is like a cooking fuel or what? Because I'm confused.
Okay.
Okay. Now, what are you talking about? The passage I read from Ezekiel?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. He's asking. He's trying to get a point over. And I hope you had a Bible there. Chapter 4. He's talking to Ezekiel and giving him instructions about what he wants him to do. The next part of his mission. He's upset with the house of Israel. Okay? He's upset with them. And he's telling him what I need you to do. He says, I want you to take wheat and barley and beans and lentils and millet, and I want you to put them in a vessel and break bread with them. He's giving him instructions, and then he's telling him to eat human excrement. And the point, the context of what I'm trying to say is, what kind of God would have another human being eat human excrement on a piece of bread? And then when the human being says, but wait a minute, I followed all your laws, I keep kosher.
Right.
And then the Lord says, okay, then eat cow's dung instead.
Which doesn't make sense.
No.
It doesn't.
But
Somebody.
it's the story right there.
Yes.
And it's these types of stories. If that one's too much for you, just any question. Why would I go into another person's land and kill men, women, and children? This is what the Lord is saying. Why do I have to kill every firstborn Egyptian child to prove a point? But we're taught that God's ways are not our ways. Well, I'm glad they're not. Because I'm not going to smash a baby in the head because you told me I should need to take their land.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And speaking about that, if you go back to the pharaohs and obviously Ra and sun gods, what do you think was that? E.T. Was that something off world too as well, or is it the same reference?
I would say it was only because these gods. These pharaohs lived 800-900 years. There has to be an extraterrestrial gene because human beings just didn't live that long then.
Right. Somebody just tweeted, this is a great question. How come we're afraid when we see E.T., but we're not afraid when we see angels?
Well, that's a great question. I think it just has to do with what we're made of. I'll give you an example. I'm a man of color. When I hear people talk about humanoid ETs, they always say they look like us. Now, I know what they mean, but what they're saying is they look white, which means they look human. And as a man of color, I sometimes say, well, I'm human. And yes, there are extraterrestrials who look what we would call some Syrians, for instance. If you saw pictures of them, one would say they look like they were from Egypt or Africa or whatever. But I think because we are taught to believe that the grays are evil, because they don't look like us, the reptilians are evil. Oh, but those other ones over there, they're blonde, blue-eyed. They look like us. And so we've been conditioned. And I think that's one of the challenges, because we do it with human beings. If you don't look like me, or your hair's a different texture, or your nose is wider, or your lips are thicker, there's a problem. That's my take on it.
When you saw the more human ETs, the tall, you were saying, I think you said tall whites.
Yeah. Well, they look like that.
Okay.
But sometimes they could be Nordic too. I mean, the names get in the way. But
Sure.
they were blonde. They were very pale. They had the hoods on. They were very big.
Do you think they look like that? I'm wondering if maybe they changed their appearance to be more calming to you, or was there some transformation? Do you think that the Greys and the reptilians could be one and the same with the tall whites, the Nordics?
Well, I mean, if you read Millennial Hospitality, a lot of people have said that sometimes they're gray reptilian hybrids. They look like grays, but they have the skin of the reptilian.
Right.
They're all about different species and different races. But obviously, they don't look at race the same way we do with all the hang-ups. But it's a lot of genetic stuff going on. And if we say that we are children of these folk, where they may have created us, which there's a lot of evidence that would make us have to look that way, then what's in them is part of us. But that's, I think, where the spirituality comes in, because they're saying you can move beyond this. You can raise your vibration. You can learn to love. You can learn. Someone asked, what do we do? Well, what do we do is we start looking at ourselves and looking at our fears and looking at how live the lives we want to be. People say we want peace in the world. Well, Gandhi says if you want peace, then be peace. If you want love, then be love. Be the change you want to see in the world. And that's hard to do because it means you have to look at yourself and the things you don't like about yourself in an honest and brutal way and say, you know what, I can do better than this. meditation, 3 to 5 minutes a day, just that much changes your vibration. It changes your thoughts just to be still. And then you start listening to yourself instead of the noise that's outside. And you start to realize that I am one with everything. That if you want to use the word God or creation, it's that it's bigger than all of us, but the only way you can get there is to be still.
Interesting. And I've often said that if we sent out a starship across the galaxy and we went to another planet, we would have, getting off of that starship, we would have black, white, yellow, red humans, fat, skinny, short, we would look like different, we would be different races. And how could we not expect to see the same coming to this planet? How could we expect every single one to look exactly like the other? Because we wouldn't if we were going somewhere else. And with that, are all of our visitations, are they coming from the same planet? Are they coming from the same place?
I don't think they are. I really don't. Now there's such, people write about the Galactic Federation, which is a group of races in our solar system that are here to monitor. And some of them may look like praying mantis. Some of them may look like tall white. Some of them may look like grays. Some of them may have the bluish tint to their skin, like some of the Arcturians. I mean, the universe is teeming with life. So they're coming from different places, but part of that lesson is we can't even get along as Earthlings.
Yeah. Bingo,
we can't even
right.
pull that together.
Right.
No, we can't pull that together. But we're going to have to. We're going to have to find a different way to settle our differences. We're going to have to find a different way to deal with people. And religion, and I'm a clergy person, but I'm not alone. And even the Dalai Lama talks about we got to find a way to deal with spirituality and ethics that has nothing to do with religion. Because religion, the way we're using it, it is dividing us.
I've got 20
You're
calls.
saved and I'm not.
I've got 20 calls backed up. I'm just taking the next in line.
Okay.
And it just happens to be Dino. Dino, how are you tonight?
Hi, good evening, Jimmy. Good evening, Reverend Mike. How are you?
Hey, brother. How are you?
I just, I'm fascinated. Thank you. You're stimulating a lot of us tonight. I was raised Catholic, and that was an early upbringing, and I didn't buy it. And when I turned 17, I started looking other places. But if I could ask you to speak, if Jimmy doesn't mind, literally what you were just talking about, I, as far as I know, have not seen an extraterrestrial or another that either lives on the Earth or elsewhere. But I've been fascinated in meeting people like Travis Walton, who also mentioned that.
Oh, yes. Travis,
Yeah, his aliens floated, and I've looked on the Internet for years and talked to Whitley Strieber once, got to meet him, and he had the little gray guys and the praying mantis. And, it hits me that when I look on the Internet and I see all the pictures or at least drawings and illustrations of these different races, that I'm just trying to be a logical, open-minded person, and it would seem to me that they are from different places.
Yes.
And why are they all converging here? This is a big universe, and the guys that were with you, I've seen the pictures of them. What you're saying, they have a hood and they have vertically slit eyes.
They look like monks. I mean, they wear like they're monks or something.
Yeah, and I wonder what's going on here. Is it really what so many people say because we split the atom and they're worried about it?
I think that is. Now, hear me out. I don't know. Remember I said I don't mind saying I don't know. I don't know. But I don't think there's such a coincidence that because when we split the atom, it's like it's like you throw a thing in a beehive and then you wake everybody up. And I don't mean to say that they're like bees and they're going to sting us. And it got their attention. Some of these stories talk about, and some of these star people talk about, we were at where you are now in our evolution. And we destroyed our planet. And we live on these ships now, and we go from place to place to place. We're explorers. And so some of them use that. They say, hey, we've been there. We know what you're getting ready to do because we've done it. There's some races or there's some people who say that they've been told that some contactees that they're fascinated with, because the Earth, when you see it from space, it's a beautiful planet.
Mm-hmm.
You see,
well, I'm wondering,
and we see these other places, they look like they've been bombed or something like that. So there are many reasons. I don't know, but I think that because what we did in 45, I think that it alerted the neighborhood that we've been here before, and this can happen again if we don't watch these folk. But also I think they're here because we have the potential
of turning things
to
around.
be better than we are, especially if they've had something to do with making us who we are.
Yeah, the genetic thing. I'm wondering, at the beginning of your visit with us tonight, because I'm one of the people that's pushing for full disclosure, at least U.S. congressional hearings, and there are some of our listeners of our family here that think, oh, it's just worthless. But I think that we need to try, and I'm thinking that there will be, if nothing else, if the hearings don't happen, it brings more attention, and it pushes that poll of over 50% of people believing that there are others in the universe that are intelligent, sentient beings to the next level. What do you think more about that?
I think and I feel this as well, that, Gandhi said everything we do is insignificant, but we must do it anyway. And I know how it is because you guys are activists. And whether it's civil rights or disclosure, it's hard. You can get discouraged because it's almost like David and Goliath. I think that you keep pushing, and I'm pushing with you because I'm very interested in exopolitics. And I know you and Stephen Bassett and these brothers and sisters are really putting it on the line out there. But I think that if you don't, it's kind of Zen, if you don't get so attached to the outcome, you do it because you feel this is what I need to do, and you let the chips fall where they may. I say do that. It's like the Buddhist non-attachment, because you won't burn out. You won't burn out because it's almost like the difference between making something happen and allowing something to happen. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Yeah, it's excellent.
Because you will burn out, brother. You will burn out. Because, I'm doing this and it hasn't happened, and goddamn it, and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, and they're going to be obstacles. But if you do it because I feel it's right, and it's like using energy, and I won't be so attached to the outcome. And then you'll see a difference. You'll live happier. Your relationship will be fuller. You're still contributing to the good of the planet. And you're not aggravated all the time because people are we're talking about a new paradigm. That's what people to do.
Okay. Hey, Michael, we're starting to lose you. Hold on for a second. Hey, Dino, thank you for the call.
Okay, thanks. Talk to you tomorrow.
Have a good night. Let's see if that cleans up.
Can you hear me now?
Okay, yeah, you're back. Yeah. Right at the end of that, you were just getting good. It started to break up. It's funny. We lasted 2 hours, clean signal, and then right at the last minute of the evening.
Why? Because I started moving. I'm going to sit down again. Yeah, but I see that when I move to a different part here, we get a little disconnect. But sorry about that. I'm back.
Okay, you're back. First off, or last off, I want to thank you. I can't wait to get you back on the show.
Oh, I'd love it.
Your book is available. Your website is up. You just click on Reverend Michael Carter's name at jimmychurchradio.com. Take you right over to his website, Michael J. Carter. J.S. Carter, it's all there, and you've got a new book coming out.
It's already out. It came out in October.
Oh, it came out October 2014.
Yeah, I thought they had sent you.
No, they did.
Anyway, it's A New World If You Can Take It. It's called A New World If You Can Take It, God, Extraterrestrials, and the Evolution of Human Consciousness. You can pick both of those up, Alien Scriptures. You can put both of those up at Barnes & Nobles or Amazon.com.
Yep, and we have those links up. What I was referring to is the book that you said you're writing now. You're writing something now. Is that going to come out next year?
No, I'm not writing anything now.
Oh, you know what? I thought I heard that earlier.
No. I just this other book just came out October 13th. So I got 2 books out, keep looking at Ancient Aliens Season 7. Some of those things that we taped in the summer are airing now.
Yep.
And maybe we can, let's. I want to talk about the new book because I go more into Jesus and God and reincarnation and Palladian spirituality. So let's try and set it up.
Absolutely. I can't wait to get you back on. And I feel like I left 100 questions on the table, but that's part of just sitting and talking. And it was a great evening.
You do a great job. You do a great job. I just want to say that before we go. And you're doing a great service. Your people who listen are wonderful, and this is how the world changes. And I just want to say it was my pleasure, sincere pleasure to be on your show, Jimmy.
Thank you so much, Reverend. And anytime, and we'll talk. Have a great night.
Yeah. Let me know. Yeah, let me know when the link comes up too.
Oh, we'll take care of all of that. Producers and myself will take care of all of that. You have a great night.
All right, brother.
Behave.
Blessings to you and your family.
Absolutely. Thank you, Michael. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And that is why you listen to Fade to Black. Right there. I had an extraordinary evening. Right now in Twitter, I'm looking over at Twitter. We're winding down. I want to know, and sorry for the 20 people that were on hold, but I knew I couldn't get everything in. Was that amazing? I want to see Twitter light up right now and just say thank you, Reverend Michael. And what's his Twitter handle is at Michael J.S. Carter. Everybody go and thank Michael for that. That was just an absolutely extraordinary evening. And I again, and I mean this in a very humble way, I left 100 questions on the table. You just can't possibly get it all in. You can't. It's a good thing we didn't take take calls at 9:00. We wouldn't have we would have missed out on everything. Absolutely fascinating. And I often wonder when you are somebody like Michael, Reverend, that is the people around him, especially the Vatican, are they contacting him, telling him to chill out? You're not really doing what you need us to do right now. Do they really do that? That's another question I just didn't get to, but there you go. This is Fade to Black, and it's just a question. It's just a conversation. I had an extraordinary time. Thank you so much. Tomorrow night, Dennis Stone will be with us. Thank you, Reverend Michael Carter. That was amazing. Stay tuned. Coming up next is Skywatchers Radio. Special thanks to Keith Rowland and Art Bell. Fade to Black's executive producer is Rita Kamarian. Show is produced by Hilton J. Palm and Mark D. Kovar. Thanks to LJ3 and Jonas. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Viteau, and Mark D. Kovar. Fady by Dale. Graphics by Method. Music by Doug Aldridge. Intro by Spaceboy. Happy birthday, Spaceboy. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Dark Matter Radio Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tomorrow night, join us. Dennis Stone from America's Stonehenge. Everybody, be safe, be well. See ya.